because I have the audio running on I have the audio running through my microphone on Streamlabs, but I have no clue if it also double runs since we're using Zoom as well. So I want
Okay.
to. So let me test that. So I sound fine. Let's see. Okay, it sounds good. All right, sweet. I can hear you and I can hear myself. Awesome, sweet. We're good to go then. All right. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much once again, Jake, for coming on. So for people who don't know, this is Jake from Pokenomics. He is, I would say, in the grand scheme of things, he's a pretty big YouTuber, in my eyes at least, when it comes to kind of the world of Pokemon and like Pokemon collecting. I've been following him for a while now, so I'm pretty stoked to be able to get him on here. So once again, thanks for coming, brother.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, yeah. Always happy to hang out and talk Pokemon. So it should be a fun time.
Yeah, and kind of as far as it goes, yeah, just there's not really a specific topic that, I kind of came up with. I have obviously a couple of questions of things that I'm kind of interested in, but I guess to kind of just start it off and get things going, what are your kind of thoughts on what's going on with Logan Paul and the whole $2 million? I mean, that's kind of the big thing that just happened.
Sure. Yeah, I think it's interesting. So I think that I think that Logan is was likely probably pretty surprised at how successful his stream was. And I think if he had known, he would have quietly bought those boxes before he blew things up. Because I actually know a lot of the people he reached out to try and
Mhm.
acquire those boxes,
Mhm.
and he didn't. He tried to buy that first box for a little while, and then he after that sort of made a second round and a second attempt to get like as many boxes as he could.
Right.
Um, so I think that was interesting that he sort of really enjoyed it. It was so unbelievably financially successful for him. It was fun. For him, I think genuinely, I mean, and there was just like so much money, so much attention, all that sort of stuff on it that it was something that he wanted to obviously do again. In terms of its effect on the hobby, I don't know. I it's definitely gonna be gonna make prices go up. I think
Mhm.
in the short term. Um, I think even just people who are already here, like even if it brings nobody else into the market, it makes people who are already here more confident to spend and less likely to sell.
Right.
You know, so even if it doesn't bring any more awareness and new people aren't watching it and coming in, even the people who are here, I think, are going to be a little bit less apt to panic sell something maybe that they were thinking of trying to sell, and so even that sort of hype just kind of temporarily uh, prices will likely go up. But I think it's fun. I mean, I definitely tune into the stream that he does, and it's great seeing those boxes open. It's super fun to see that. So be interesting to see how the auctions go. I think that's fascinating. This time he's auctioning off the packs
Mhm.
instead of selling the packs,
Yeah, I
and
saw that.
yeah, and like the amount of value that you get for basically being like shouted out by Logan Paul or like becoming friendly with Logan Paul or being
Mhm.
part of his like in terms of like social media presence might make those packs go like super high in price. And so it'll be interesting to see, yeah, what kind of comes of that.
Yeah, and I think what's even more interesting, and I kind of like this concept. I mean, a lot of people are kind of trash talking it, but the agreement he made with PSA to where when you get the label graded, it'll say from the Logan Paul stream. I think that's kind of a cool idea, and I think it will bring a premium on the cards.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine, particularly for like the right collectors. I mean, it makes that card a one of one or a one of a few, a pretty special card. I think for me, I'm not sure if I care or want that specifically.
Right.
I'm definitely not like I don't have like negative feelings towards Logan Paul. I also like don't have like strong positive feelings of like, yeah, I'm a big fan
Right.
of or admirer of his. So, but I think it's cool. I mean, it's part of history. It's part of Pokemon history what
Hmm.
he's done, and has had a huge effect on the market. So even in that sense, even if you're not a huge Logan Paul fan, having that piece of history from those booster box openings that really um, I think mark this interesting like social media hype time in the hobby.
Hmm.
I could see how that would be appealing, and that would actually be appealing to me. I think on some level for some amount of premium, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of how I look at it. Is I look at it as there's obviously, a lot larger amount in the grand scheme of things of like these first edition cards, but then once you put that premium on it and you have that, symbol of it this was broken, then it almost goes into a different level of population report when it comes to that specific card. And so I feel like there's always going to be a market for that because like you were saying, it's a part of Pokemon history now. So whether it's like you're a big fan of Jake Paul or not, I feel like it's going to be something that will cause the card prices to go up because of that. My next question, I guess, what I'm kind of interested in is, obviously right now everything keeps going up, up, and up. So I feel like this is only going to lead to it more. But the question is, what specific area of the market is going to go up more? I've heard a lot of people say evolution hollows, which I think that's oddly specific. It could be evolutions in general, or just a lot of the older sets. But I'm kind of curious what your thoughts are.
I mean, I would think before evolutions would go up, base set would go back up because that base set is
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
have like crashed a lot. So it's weird that someone would jump to evolutions when evolutions the cards have gone down quite a bit, but
Hmm.
unlimited base set even went down more on average, and some of the hollows and evolutions have gone up, and obviously the booster boxes has gone up. Um, so I don't really understand that
Hmm.
argument, other than I think people own those cards, and so they want their cards to go up, and they probably don't own base set. So I think a lot of people make arguments based on what they own and what they want to see happen, which I get. Uh, but it might trickle into evolutions. Again, I don't think that I don't see it that way. I think that what happened with the first Logan Paul thing was it actually brought a bunch of new people into the hobby, and they go to base set because that's what they're most comfortable with. That's what they collected as a kid. I
Hmm.
don't think we're going to see that as much this time, that they're going to be like tons of new people coming in because of this.
Hmm.
I think it might just reinvigorate the people who are already here. And I actually think that what you're going to see is you're going to see people who stay in the hobby get bored or get less interested in base set and start to
Hmm.
move to other things, not because they don't like base set, but just because there's a lot more in Pokemon to collect and enjoy. Whether you're into modern or vintage or the in between sets outside of base set. So I'm not sure that that makes as much sense this time. I don't think it was because he was opening base set so much. I mean, a little bit of that base set went up. I think it actually had more to do with that. If I had to guess, that it's just the set that everyone's the most comfortable with. So of course they're gonna go and collect that first. And if they have lots of YouTubers telling them that it's an incredible investment and they're gonna make tons of money,
Right.
and you're also gonna have a lot of fun and relive your childhood. Like who isn't gonna jump on board for that?
Right, and that's the big Pokenomics about it, is it's one of these things where it's like as more people come into the market and they hear that they can make X amount of dollars, then the demand starts to drive up, and for that reason, you start to see a lot of the prices go up, and then through that, for the people that aren't able to afford it, it will then trickle on down to the next thing, which might be base set 2 or might be a lot of these other vintage sets or like we said possibly evolutions, because for a lot of people that is considered to be the modern base set for a lot of new people coming into the market. So
Yeah,
yeah.
people who want to open it, it's like that I get for the evolutions. But the cards are still very affordable, like the unlimited base set cards, the base set two, legendary collection cards are still fairly affordable.
Mhm.
What's not affordable is the sealed product. And so when
100%.
people want to open base set, I get why you would go to evolutions. That's your
Mhm.
that's your best option of like opening some of those cards. So that I totally get for the
Exactly. And that's kind of where I'm getting at, because for me personally, like as a collector, I would love to be able to own some of like the first edition base set cards, but as far as it goes, like that I can, or not first edition, but sorry, the base set packs, and that's something that's been difficult because it's so expensive. I own a lot of base cards because it's affordable, like you're saying. But to be able to have that sealed product would be a cool collection piece. And I feel like that's where a lot of people are, is because, I mean, for me at least personally, a big thing that I obviously love about the hobby is, although it's cool, like from like a collector's perspective, to be like, I have the Charizard, but from a fan of Pokemon, it's even cooler to pull the Charizard. And so to be able to like just have those pieces that you could, whether it be collecting the artworks or whether it be just having the packs to open and buying like a heavy pack, I think it's something that's even cooler because it builds a story behind it, for me personally at least.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people are like that, and then there's obviously people that are like, I don't care, I just want to open the card. Or I just want to get the card. And I feel like there's an argument for both, which is why I have the card, and also long term I like to be able to own the packs as well.
Yeah, I think both of those things are clearly true for different people. Like there are genuine collectors who don't care if they open their card, they just want the card, and then there are collectors who really want to open everything,
Hmm.
everything themselves. And I get that. Like I believe both of them.
Yeah, and it's funny too, because like a perfect example of that is like, so Champions Path, the new Champions Path set, it has the Charizards, right? So I did the math, and if you want to collect the whole set, maybe $700. It's a really cheap set to collect in the grand scheme of things, purely because you have the two Charizards, and then everything else is dirt cheap if you want to get the Master Collection. But of course, me being stubborn about it, I was like, rather than buying those two Charizards, let's just spend several $100s opening it, not getting the Charizard, and then just being like, I'm going to get it this time. No, I'm going to get it this time. And I just keep opening, hoping I get the Charizard. And then eventually, after I've already blown through like $500 worth of champions, I'm like, fine, I guess I'll buy it, because it's way more satisfying to get that feeling of, I pulled it from this trainer box. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, I pulled the Burning Shadows Charizard.
Oh, that's so sick.
That's the only like really huge modern chase card I've ever pulled. I never pulled the I didn't really open too much Hidden Fates. I opened up quite a not a huge amount. For me, I opened up a lot a large of Shiny GX, which for me was just three boxes.
Right.
And didn't pull the Charizard from that. But but yeah, mostly Rafi, who I run the channel with.
Mhm.
Mostly we usually open like one booster box of every new set,
Mhm.
one thing of every new set. And so I'm not getting lots of these. The luck is of course not always going to be there that out of just one booster box you're going to pull
Right.
one of these huge hits. But I did happen to pull that Burning Shadows Charizard, which was very exciting.
Oh, I can imagine. That's so sick. Yeah, no, it's funny too because I do breakers on my stream too. And
Yeah.
I remember my first breaker, did a Champions Path one because Champions Path just came out, and I opened 90 Champions Path packs on stream, and I pulled four Charizards, and I'm like, oh my god, why can't I get one of these Charizards? It's like you're just being taunted by the fact that everyone's pulling Charizards, and you're like hoping. Thankfully, I was lucky enough to get the Rainbow Rare Charizard, but that shiny one I just ended up having to buy after opening over 100 packs. So, but as far as luck goes, the best luck that I got was, so I haven't, and maybe it's just the conviction of how expensive the Hidden Fates tins are and the Elite Trainer boxes are, but I haven't pulled much of it either. But I remember one day I was doing Champion's Path, and I was like, I haven't pulled a Charizard. Like, I at least want to feel like I pulled something. So I was like, I'll open a Hidden Fates tin. So I opened a
Yeah.
Hidden Fates tin, and on the last pack, it had the Charizard. And I was like, you gotta be kidding me. I was like, well, this makes it all worth it. And so I was like, I opened one tin, I got the Charizard, I'm good to go. I feel good about it. So that was my best pull.
Yeah, it's really fun when you pull the card you want most, even if it's not a value thing, but just a card I'm like looking for to complete this full art set or this part. It's a great feeling. I also love, there are just certain cards from sets that I really like that don't have much value, that when I pull them, that's really fun too. So when I'm actually really getting into my collecting and filling out binders, or I actually really try and not think very much about the money, because it can actually take away from the enjoyment, and
Mhm.
I really think more about the art and what
Yeah.
cards I like the look of and enjoy that process. Because it what happens is, if you're just with like particularly with a set like Champions Path, you can just like be like, okay, crap, garbage.
Garbage, garbage,
Yeah,
garbage. Oh,
garbage.
Charizard, garbage, garbage.
In that card like 20 times, like,
But
I can't
yeah.
until you get those. And so I think that for me personally, it's part of what is fun about filling out binders is it
Mhm.
actually helps you kind of appreciate and look at all of the cards, and a lot more than just if you're ripping to flip or to sell into the market, and you're just kind of looking for the analytics for the profit of like, okay, I need to hit this card or I lose money on this type of thing.
No, 100%. So what would you say your favorite artwork is from what I guess let's say era and then what set?
Oh, of like my favorite artwork of all time.
Yeah.
I don't know the answer to
You
that.
don't know the answer to that?
I don't think I don't have a favorite artwork. No. Do you have a favorite artwork? Like
So
for
I
sure.
can say era, but that's also I'm very
Yeah.
biased because I'm such a nostalgic guy and I talk about it a lot on my stream, but I'm a huge fan of the Level X and EX era, but Level X more specifically is my favorite, but that's just cuz that's kind of what I grew up on. Like I remember like the young as far as it goes cuz I'm only 22, I'm really young. And so like Deoxys was what I remember and I loved the Deoxys set, but then also one of my favorite ones was I was a huge fan of Stormfront, and then I was a huge fan of Majestic Dawn. And I know it's unpopular, but I like the claymations. I thought they did a great job with a lot of the claymation artwork, and I thought it was super cool designs. Not to mention a lot of the artwork too. It had like how do I want to say it? Like it had multiple Pokemon in the picture. So like for example, this was in if I think this was a popular one in the I think it was the EX era, but it was like a Poochyena, and then it was chasing after a different Pokemon. I'm trying to remember which one it was, but like when you have like literal artwork of that Pokemon doing some form of interaction, I've always thought that was something that I just kind of enjoyed. And so, yeah, the Level X era, and like I said before, like I'm a little biased about it because that's kind of what I grew up on and I liked a lot of the cards. Plus, I'm a huge Evolution fan, and so having the Leafeon and the Glaceon are just like I'd love to be able to own them long term. Obviously, they have such low population, so that'll be hard to get them in PSA 10. But I mean, they're still beautiful cards, and I don't know, I love the design.
Yeah, I agree with you on the yeah, Majestic Dawn in general. Like all of the hollows from that set are really nice. I like the Porygon too from that set.
Yeah, I have the Porygon, not in a 10, but I still have it. It's sick.
Well, it's hard, very hard to get those cards, as you said, in tens. Right now, it may become easier because more people are definitely grading them right now, and we'll
Mhm.
see how many more. And I had a couple guys from Europe contact me saying they were like sending in 50 of a lot of that era cards that they just had a
Wow.
lot, said they were all mint. So
Wow. That's crazy.
people do contact me, and like I don't know if everything's true that people tell me, but
Do you offer a pre-grading service or?
no, this isn't like a business for me. I just started a Patreon like
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that recent update video you did.
this week, and it basically it's just like if you like what we're doing and you feel like it would make you happy to like donate, but you're really not gonna like miss any of the content or miss anything
Right.
if you don't is the thing of the Patreon. The one perk I'm doing is people can ask me questions and I'll answer them. Like I'll make sure I answer them on the lives that we do every week,
Mhm.
instead of like because I know a lot of people ask questions and I just miss them because there's like lots of questions and I'm just kind of like grabbing random ones, and that way you'll and also I'll be able to like prepare for the questions to give even maybe better answers. I think I'll actually be better for everyone. That was
N-
the idea.
Yeah.
Um, but um, but yeah. So I don't think I'm ever gonna like want to do that sort of stuff.
Mhm.
Do pre-grading, become like a middleman for
Yeah,
PSA, like
that
you know,
sounds a lot of work. I know Z and G
yeah.
started to partner with Graded Gem, and I was like, "Oh, that's kind of cool," but for me personally, oh, that sounds like so much work to be able to do all that kind of stuff.
Yes, he there's a lot of work. He has many packages. Him and his wife do a lot of it together, and he gets a lot of support from her. And um, yeah, and I think that it's a good business. It's a good business for them, but it's definitely very time consuming and a lot of work. It's hard work. Um, but yeah, I really like I really like the level X era. I guess what are my yeah, I I think that I'm such a fan of like so many different cards in all eras and all Pokemon. I almost I find it odd when people are like very attached to like certain things. I think that for me it was like I started with base set and
Uh-huh.
Jungle Fossil, the stuff I grew up with, went into the gyms, which I also collected as a kid.
Mhm.
And that is all that I ever knew about as a kid.
Mhm.
I didn't make it to Neo even.
Oh,
So
really? Neo was a
yeah,
great gen too.
yeah, yeah. I never even like saw those cards. I was like already out. So when I got back in, I started with that stuff, but then I saw the cards I never knew about and collected, and I was like, oh my gosh, gotta have all of those. Loved E series. I think that the E series art, some of those arts are probably the best arts in the hobby, are probably the best looking cards in the hobby. I'm not sure they're my favorite or I'm the most connected to them, interestingly, even though I think that they're probably the best.
Mhm.
Like some of the arts, like I really like the Articuno from Skyridge.
Mhm.
What are some of my other very favorites from those sets? I like the Suicune from Aquapolis. The Crystal Lugia is gorgeous, like
Oh
really,
yeah,
really
that's a beautiful card.
I love the Crystal Charizard. It's an interesting. It's more cartoonish, but I do like it. Uh, yeah. So there's just like, the Mew from Expedition. I'm trying to think of like my very favorites from each set.
I love the Mew from I love the Shiny Star Mew. That's one of my favorite ones. Oh god, I think that card's so beautiful, but maybe I'm just a sucker for blue shinies. But I think it's such a cool card.
Which one? The Gold Star one, or
Yeah, Gold Star Mew.
yeah, it's a great looking card. Yeah, I was lucky enough to get a few of those right before the price spike.
Dang.
Because I really liked that card, and it was I felt like it was undervalued at the time.
I mean,
I
I've
also the World Championship version of that one. The If you've seen that one,
Yeah, I've seen that one before. Yeah, I remember watching one of your videos too, and it was so funny. You were talking about level X era cards, and you're like, "Yeah, I got this PSA 10 for $50," and I'm just like, "Oh, what it would be like to go back and live in that time again." I was like, "Cause that card is worth so much more now, and it is so much harder to complete master PSA 10 sets of level X cards. Even nines have gotten harder because they've started to raise so much in value."
yeah, yeah. It was there were people
Mm.
just trying to liquidate these things because they had no value.
Right.
Um, and this was like a year and a half ago. So why I say it is like this wasn't like 15 years ago back in the old days when no one, this was like very recent, and
I
it
know.
shows you how quickly markets can shift. And the reason I share that is to try and like have people understand that like, you know, I have like 1,000 like percentage like not a thousand times on a lot of these like level X cards, which
Right.
is which shows like that there's a reason why the pop reports are low, because no one was ever grading these because no one ever wanted them. So there's a lot of stuff here that the amount of supply is going to really surprise people in the next couple of years over a lot of things. And it's probably going to make, if Pokemon stays really hot, it's probably going to make the oldest vintage stuff in base at first edition even more expensive, because people are going to realize that that was the only thing that was really everything was being graded, because that's where all the value was and that's where all the collectors were trying to hunt down. And there was zero, basically zero modern graded market outside of like a couple, of the highest Charizards, which immediately were doing well. And all of these cards were going for 15, 20, $50, all these rainbow rare PSA 10 hollows, that
Mhm.
now they're going for 600, 700, 800, depending on the one. So um it's the most important thing for people getting into the game now to understand, is that the modern pop reports do not reflect the amount of gem mint supply in the world. And that's true really from everything that isn't a gold star. Even in the original Nintendo EX era, even the regular hollows, there's still a lot more of those, even though those pop reports are low. So um yeah, so that's the message that I try and share with that all the time, because I think it's there are a lot of new people in the hobby who are really smart and savvy, but just don't have the time in the hobby. And the only
Right.
way you know that is if you have the time in the hobby, or you
Right.
listen to people who have the time in the hobby, because they they know that, like, I know people who have, like, I bought probably 1,000 level X cards. I was buying them for like $1.50, and I was buying every single one I could on the market because I
Mhm.
thought they were really cool and were really undervalued. And
Mhm.
it was like only 50 cents a card.
Right.
Yeah. And a
Oh
lot of them were in
wow.
like really good condition. So it was a very, very different thing. And
Right.
it just shows you how quickly demand can change, but the
Yeah.
supply side is not caught up with the demand side. What's going to happen is, because the prices are so high, it creates an incentive for everyone who has these cards to start grading them, where they
Right.
didn't have incentive before. So, and with PSA being completely destroyed, I'm waiting. I'm waiting. It's been almost a year from one of my
Wh-
for my order. It's
when
been
did you send it in?
let's see. I think I sent mine in April.
Yeah, you got
Uh,
me beat. I sent mine in June, so you got me beat.
and I'm still in grading, and that was before most of the spike. So people have to understand that, like, this, none of the spike cards have even been come out yet.
Mhm.
So all of the cards that are coming out now that weren't expedited,
Mhm.
that were just in regular bulk, which is where all these level X cards, whereas all those types of cards would be, haven't come back, or haven't even, and most of them were probably sent in 3, 4, 5 months ago. And with level X, most of them are being sent in now, or the last couple of months.
It'll be
So
in.
we're like
Yeah.
we're like over a year behind for the market to catch up in terms of supply. So it's going to create these time periods where prices are going to spike a lot, but they may end up correcting. So just be careful.
So here's an interesting question then for you. Because obviously we're going to have an influx of just a large amount of cards coming into the population. Obviously, a lot of people like to talk about everything just going up, up, and up with Jake Paul, and just how just we're seeing such a shortage in overall product being printed just because of everything going on in the world. Um, it's inevitable. I feel like a lot of people like they'll talk about it, but they kind of avoid what it'll look like. As far as everything crashing. I'm kind of curious what your thoughts will look like, or what your thoughts are on what that will look like. I'll kind of give my thoughts a little bit. For me personally, I'm someone who likes to, like, I've been investing and trading in the stock market, and I talk about this sometimes on my channel since I was 12 years old. And so I've been following the market forever. And one of the things I like to do is I like to look at like historical patterns. And so it's one of these things where for me, I feel like if we're just going off of it, because obviously this is like the growth has been exponential. I feel like it's one of these things where the expectation is almost specifically in the single cards department, you're going to start to see it be a huge crash. But I guess it's hard for me personally, and this is where I'm leading in my question, to really judge that on sealed product, because obviously sealed product's a whole different ball game. Because with sealed product, since it's not being printed and since people are opening sealed product like Jake Paul, it really affects the supply as continuously it's going down as more people open it. So I'm kind of curious on your thoughts are when the inevitable crash happens, what you think it's going to look like as far as how that'll affect sealed product.
Yeah, it's such a great question. I think about that all the time. I mean, theoretically, it should have an effect on sealed product too, because the expected value will go down so dramatically.
Mhm.
I mean, a big reason why sealed product has such a premium is because it's really one of the only ways to get gem mint cards of a lot of these sorts of things.
Mhm.
But if the cards aren't that valuable inside, if the gem mint card isn't that valuable, then why is someone paying thousands of dollars, premium for a box? Then it comes down to, well, are they buying it for the premium of opening it,
Mhm.
or, and this is a lot of the market, they're just sealed collectors. They love having the sealed product, and it just feels great to have it. It's a cool display piece.
Mhm.
And that part of the market will be certainly somewhat resistant to the retraces from the supply of the PSA cards. How much it will be resistant to that retrace, I have no idea. I
Mhm.
think it'll depend on the product. It'll depend on how many people are hoarding the product and not opening it. Because if there are a lot of people hoarding modern product right now, which I'm not sure there are, I don't know. I think that amazingly the prices are so great to open these things on live streams and other places that so much of this modern product is actually being opened and consumed because people just have such a fever right now for actually getting the cards and not just the sealed product, which is really good for sealed product investors. If
Hmm.
the product doesn't get opened, you're going to be in trouble with a lot of these modern boxes. Um, uh, yeah, so I collect Dragon Ball Z
Oh, that's
scorecard.
cool.
And in Dragon Ball Z Score, the boxes have such a premium over the cards that you can get inside, way more than Pokemon. And so it doesn't sometimes when items are just extremely rare, but these boxes are quite rare depending on the box. When it's a limited box and it's a specific saga, like the rarest sagas. The point being, and we can compare that to like a Deoxys box in Pokemon or an E Series box, some of the rarest boxes in the hobby. Um, the rarer the box, the more difficult it is to find that box sealed, the more of a premium it'll have on its expected value inside.
Hmm.
So if there are only 150 200 left of some of these like premium boxes in the hobby,
Hmm.
it almost gets to a point where does it even matter how much the valuables are inside if the product is so rare and people want that item so much for their collection. And it certainly, like, if let's take the first edition base set booster box, okay, because it's almost certainly the rarest box left, outside of maybe like no rarity jungle, and there's a lot of like, does that even exist, and how do we determine if it's no rarity jungle? What? I'm sorry, not
Right.
jungle. No rarity. They said no rarity jungle. Sorry.
No, I knew what you were talking about.
Uh, and so so it's probably the rarest, right? So, uh, but let's imagine that those like the PSA 10 cards, the base set first edition cards just crash. Let's just imagine, and like the Charizard
Yes.
comes back to 40,000.
Yes.
Yeah, all of the PSA 10 first edition cards come all the way back, to a couple thousand, dollars each, to $1,000 each, to under $1,000 for some of them.
That'd be the dream.
Yeah. Would that booster box maintain its value completely? I think I think probably not. And that's the rarest one. That's the
Right.
one that we'd think would have the most premium over sealed because it's such a rare box in itself. I would imagine that it would come back down a little bit because people just wouldn't be willing to pay so much of a premium on a box that's so much more valuable than the cards inside, that you could just like never even get close. Even if you hit the most home run box ever that had like 3 PSA 10 Charizards in it, you still would like lose a lot of money if you're buying the box for 400,000, right? And
Right.
this, so it is a math problem, but where that math problem ends up and what people are comfortable paying in the long run, is interesting. I do think that as the market matures, people will do more of that thinking, and that will have more of an effect. I even think in like the score DBZ market right now, like the URs, the ultra rares, the best cards from these sets are underrated, and the booster box prices are overrated when you do the math by quite a bit.
Right.
And we see that in Pokemon too, where certain sets, it's like everything is going for nothing. We saw that in like some black and white sets, or there are different sets where it's like there's nothing of value sort of inside the box.
Merging
Particular,
powers.
but the
Everyone's
box is
favorite.
yeah, and it's like what's going on there, and how sustainable is that? So what I tell people, particularly with a set like Evolutions, which I think is the best one to talk about because there's just so much supply and there's so much being graded right now.
It's ridiculous. It's
Yeah,
so stupid, in my opinion. I
yeah.
mean,
Please, please do not invest your life savings in PSA cards from Evolutions. Okay, the booster boxes will be more resistant to the retraces, but that'll be the best place to test, to watch and see like how resistant are booster boxes to when the PSA cards get flooded and the prices go down on PSA cards. What effect will that have on Evolution? So I'll be watching that closely.
Oh yeah, 100%. And so there's a couple of things I wanted to kind of touch base on what you mentioned. So the first thing is, first off, I think that's a great point on the evolutions one because oh my goodness gracious, we talk about all the time because I'm in a Discord chat about how just ridiculous it is because you're able to still get these packs in like just regular tins, and obviously it's harder to find them now, but you can still find tins or Meowth VMAX collection boxes or whatever that looks like, where you can get them for like 20, 30 bucks. And versus you go and you find one online for anywhere between 14 to 20 bucks. And it's just like I can
Yep.
go get a box that's worth about 20 to 30 bucks, but it also comes with 3 or 4 other packs that could possibly include Unified Minds, Cosmic Eclipse, any of the modern Sword Shield era. It's like ridiculous how expensive it is compared to like the actual supply in which Evolutions has. Not to mention, I remember I was looking at it back in like July, and it was one of these things too for me. I was like, I was investing in a lot of. I was trying to create my own booster box collection, and I was looking at Evolutions. I was like, oh, Evolutions is $100. I'm like, that feels like it's overvalued. I feel like it. I feel like it should be at least $90, like maybe 80. I feel like it's not that sought after. No one talks about Evolutions, and then like now looking back, I was like, dude, I was so wrong. But I feel like it has to change at some point. Um,
Yeah.
and, and then another thing as well, talking about how you were saying like with the hypothetical about, let's say, first edition crashes. I feel like I agree with you on the aspect of the box will go down itself, and I feel like we won't also know this answer of how much it'll go down, how hard of a hit. I feel like cards will definitely take a larger hit because obviously when you're looking at cards, there's an ever so increasing supply. Obviously, as the hobby expands, then the demand increases. But let's say hypothetically that the demand just all of a sudden dies out and people are still grading these first editions, then I feel like, yeah, that's when the cards are going to take the largest hit. But the rarity of the boxes are still going to remain. But at the same time, like you were saying, the fluctuation of the cards going down is still going to correlate with the box value. I'm just curious how much that'll look like. Um, because I mean it's one of these things too where looking at hoarders, how many hoarders of first edition. I mean, if you watch the Jake Paul video, it was interesting seeing so many of the people that he was talking with, how they're like $500,000, and you're like, bro, like he was able to get it for 350 or 400 from other people, but these people are like, I'm not letting it go unless it's for this amount, and they have that price point in their head. And a lot of
Yeah.
people too who bought these boxes or bought these cards for so much, I mean, it really will come down to, are they going to be able to liquidate it because it's one of these things where they need the cash, or are they like a collector and they don't really care about the value and it's only a set dollar amount? So I feel like that plays a huge factor. But here's an interesting question for you. So speaking of population report and like kind of the adjustment of rarity, one of the things thought was kind of interesting when talking about like the value in which sealed correlates with these individual graded cards, I was looking through because when I was investing, I purely go off of population report, but I also go off of what set I have the most fun owning of as a display piece. So I owned a Majestic Dawn booster box for a while. I bought it for 4,000, and then I ended up letting go of it for about $5,000. Now it's on auction right now. It's going for about $6,500, and it still has 3 days left. And now I'm kicking myself. What's interesting though about it is I find like, because I did the math on it, if you pulled 360 of those cards, obviously you're gonna get from the box, and you graded them, I mean, obviously we don't know if the market's going to crash, and like we expect the market to crash. So hypothetically, if it weren't to crash, I'd be interested to see what the actual return on that was, because I did the math, and if we just looked at real market value, a lot of these cards, like the level X, like let's just say you pull Leafeon, right? Like the Leafeon population report for the 10s, it's less than 10 in overall population, if I'm correct. I think we're at 8. And the 9s, it's like you can still
It's
sell the
two,
9.
yeah.
What's up?
It
Sorry,
was at two.
it's
It
at
was
2.
at not too
Yeah,
long ago.
yeah, that's crazy. And it's like with the 9s, it's like it's still relatively low. And I think the last one I saw sold was for like $3,000, $4,000. And so like the boxes themselves, either you look at it one of two ways. Either you look at the boxes are still hyper undervalued, because if you pull one of these EVs and you sell them, then the evolutions you just make your money's worth. Or you can say that the boxes are both hyper undervalued, and I think it could be true for both things. But I'm kind of curious on what your thoughts are as far as it goes for like these population report cars that are so low. And obviously, we're in such a hot market right now that if everything crashes, people are like, oh, level X's are lame. Like I only invested in them because it was a money opportunity. But as it's hot right now, I'm kind of curious what your thought process is on that.
Yeah, level X's are definitely not lame. Like,
Not in my eyes, man. Not my.
no,
I get trashed so much.
it's silly. it's completely irrational. Those cards are gorgeous looking cards with really cool hollow patterns of evolutions of their first cool chase card ever released, first appearance cards. Those are excellent, excellent cards. Okay, are they $3,000-4,000 in PSA 10? That's way too high. Okay, but if you look at modern, it's not way too high at all. That's a much better buy than a lot of the ultra modern cars that people are buying for thousands of dollars.
Did you see the Glaceon that sold, or the one that's on the market right now, or in the last one that was sold? So the last Glaceon
Yeah,
I saw on eBay, it sold for, I think it was $8,000, and a guy's asking 13,000 right now on eBay. And I was like,
yeah. I mean, the gold stars are much better buys. Like if you can get the gold stars at those prices, the gold stars are so much rarer.
uh,
Like I can't like it. Like it's so. First of all, it's 1 in 72 packs roughly for the gold stars versus level X's where you're getting, two a box, right?
mhm,
Roughly. Um, uh, it's there. We don't know about the eras, like how much less, Majestic Dawn is there versus Deoxys boxes that were in existence. We don't know, but
mhm.
it's even if they were the exact same, and you know, the gold stars are older. They're extremely cool. They're shiny cards. They're you know, uh, and they're much harder to pull. So they should be probably in a rational world, more valuable than the level X cards and by quite a large margin. The
Right.
level X cards should be more compared to the regular EX cards, in my opinion, from the Nintendo EX era, but they should be less valuable. Similar pull rates, but not as old. And probably there are more of them in the world because probably these sets were printed more than the Nintendo EX era, but maybe not. Maybe Pokemon was pretty dead through evenly throughout these periods, and so there's a similar amount of all of these things in the world.
So one of my guys in the chat says the older Diamond and Pearl level X's were only one per box. That's
Oh,
what.
okay. Does he know where it's split? Because I didn't know that.
Yeah, I don't know. Raheem, do you know where it split as far as when it started to go to two, or if it did? Because that's kind of where I had heard as well. I had heard it was one, and if you got two, you were super lucky. Because they were deemed really rare. But obviously, I still 100% agree with you on the gold stars, because a lot of the values of these gold stars, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, I feel like they still have a lot of room to grow. I guess then the question is once again, when the market crashes, how much is the retrace going to look like? Because I would love to own like a PSA 10. I mean, I could own a PSA 10 Charizard if I really wanted to, but for me, I don't care that much about Charizards. Like, I love Charizards, don't get me wrong. Like, Charizards are great. I mean, obviously, everyone always talks about the Charizard tax when it comes to an investment piece, so it'd be something I'd want to invest in. But to me, it's once again going back to, like you were saying, the love of the hobby and the artwork. And so I'd care to own the Mew more personally. So that's kind of what I would love to do. But it's one of those things where it's like you're saying, it's super rare and it's really hard to find specifically on eBay. I think the last one sold for that I saw at least. I think it sold for like $12,000. So which I mean, you could make an argument that that's a steal, or you can make an argument that's overvalued. It's like you can go both ways. I feel like. For me personally, he said okay. So Raheem says specifically for the Diamond and Pearl Majestic Dawn. Um, so which
So
if I'm correct, wasn't Majestic Dawn the last one of the Diamond and Pearl era sets before it transitioned into Platinum?
I'd have to check on Pokemon Press, yeah. But I know, so I made a video on this that I think had accurate information where I split them up into different eras and
Mm-hmm.
talked about that on my channel. I know I've talked to people who opened up a lot of the product, and I know that there were two in the boxes for that, but it might have been the later stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That I don't remember. So, but here's why it's so important. It's the same thing. I've had discussions with people about like the EX era, where there were like theories that power keepers it was easier to pull gold stars, but then that was dismissed, and there was actually just more EX power keepers. So the Flareon, Jolteon,
Right.
those not rare. So there's a lot of like misinformation online.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and I probably don't. I probably have things wrong in my head too, unintentionally, because different people say different things
Mm-hmm.
about these sort of sets. So it's very important when you're doing the math to have that understanding. I think I'm remembering now. that your friend there might be right. And I think that when I was actually buying the cards, I think was calculating that into the price. Although when I was buying them, I was buying a lot of them off of like Card Rush Inc. in different places that were
Mhm.
selling them so cheap that I was just sort of buying, like it made sense either way. Um,
Raheem said that Legends Awakened. Oh, I forgot. He's right. Stormfront was the last one. Yeah, I totally forgot about that. Stormfront was the last one because that's where it had the gold Charizard in it, and that was kind of like the celebration of the Diamond and Pearl era. So that was the last one of the Level X era for Diamond and Pearl. But sorry. Anyway, as you were saying.
no, it's all good. Yeah, I'm just pulling it up right now just so I have the visual aid of the sets.
Yeah, I freaking love Stormfront. Oh, Stormfront was one of my favorite sets. That
Yeah,
was
Stormfront had the those secret rare Charmander.
Charizard. Yeah,
Yeah,
Charmander, Charmeleon, and Charizard.
I remember
Yeah,
those.
with the redesigned arts. Yeah, I
Yeah.
thought that was cool. So then here's an interesting question then for you. So like speaking for myself or for other collectors who kind of are just getting back into the hobby, who kind of grew up in the Level X, Diamond and Pearl, and let's just say EX era. For those people that are wanting to collect the graded cards, let's say just PSA 10, do you think now is a good time to get in, or do you think it's if obviously you're a long-term collector because you like the hobby, or is it something worth waiting in case or is it just going to keep going up and when it does retrace? I mean, it's hard for you to answer that question, but I'm kind of curious on your thoughts.
Um, I think right now, to be completely honest, I think that just thinking about the numbers, if we like putting demand aside for a second, if we're just looking at how much of the stuff probably exists, like E series is a much better investment than these level X cards for like the price differential.
Right.
Um, it's actually because there are so many hollows in those E series sets, pulling any individual hollow is actually quite difficult. And it's so much more expensive and so difficult to find that product.
Hmm.
But the big theory about level X, and this is something I always felt, was that people in your generation were going to come in, start having more money, and want to collect level X, and that was they're not going to. They don't care about E series. Yeah,
That's me.
yeah, exactly. And then it's, well, I don't care if that's rare or more expensive, or people before me like that better. I don't like it, and I don't want it, and I like that's always going to be a thing in the market. I think you have a benefit of knowing the level X's better than me, like
Hmm.
intuitively, because you actually collected them and grew up with them,
Right.
whereas I didn't. So I think that there's that's why I like talking to a lot of collectors and trying to get like what they like
Hmm.
and why they like it and try to get that sense. Um, so I think that there are a number of people in that boat who have a similar feeling about those eras, who really like them more.
Hmm.
The E series was weird because it kind of fell in between. It was like the people my age didn't really like it. They're mostly out of the hobby. And like, there just weren't that many fans of them. They weren't really that well liked when they came out. So
Hmm.
there might not be the same level of like nostalgia connection to those that even things like level X's have, even though they are, a lot more vintage and part of Wizards of the Coast, that type of thing.
Hmm.
Um, but for me, it's just hard. It's hard, man. Price wise, like, these like the PSA nines were going for like $8. Fire selling Card Rush Inc. A year and a half ago. So
Right.
I and PSA nine Dark Rise, you know, that I was buying for $9. So it's like,
That's probably was it the I mean it's probably still worth the promo's worth as much, but were you doing more of the uh were you doing more of the Legends Awakened or you were doing more of the promo Dark Rise that you were buying?
not the promo. So the promos weren't coming up very much.
Interesting.
It was and a lot of the major seller at the time was Card Rush Inc., who was liquidating them. Obviously, they were doing like mass box openings, or just they had a ton, of supply, and they basically graded them all at PSA. They sold off the nines, some of the tens. I
Mhm.
don't know how much they still have left, if any. They really messed that up, obviously.
Whoopsie.
Although they probably needed the capital, needed the rolling capital to, as
Right.
these businesses operate. Um, but it's a humongous percentage growth on these cards, like
Right.
more than vintage in some of these cases.
Right.
So, and I think that people are falling. I think part of the reason people are paying so much is because of those low pops, and they really don't think that there are going to be more of them.
Mhm.
It's possible that there will be similar numbers of these to like the Wizards of the Coast stuff, and that would
Okay.
make them quite rare.
Right.
But that would be like if you look at like Skyridge, like that would be like 100 to 200 to probably eventually 300 PSA 10s,
Right.
not eight,
Mhm.
2, 6, 4. You know what I mean? So, but I have no idea. It seems impossible that given those were at Walmart that like that be zero in the world. And, you know, right? It just seems possible that that's all there is, and just because of how PSA how backed up there is, the I think that the most logical conclusion is that that people are going to be sending them in now, for
Mhm.
um, but uh, I guess it would depend on the price point. It would depend. I'm seeing some of the PSA 10s going for like $200, $300,
Right.
$400. I think that that's a price point that if I grew up with those cards, I would feel like more comfortable going in on and enjoying. I
Mhm.
certainly think those are much better buys. I'm seeing people buying like PSA 10, like Mew regular hollow from Fates Collide is a card I've been picking on that I saw someone buy in like the last auction for $320. Like these level X's to me are much, much better buys than a lot of this like ultra modern stuff.
Uh-huh.
So but maybe not as good a buy as some of this vintage, as some of this even more vintage stuff right now,
Mhm.
and some of this like particularly cards like some of these like lower end trophy cards that people don't talk as much about, or
Oh, that okay, that is actually a great segue, or not segue, I should say, but that leads into something I actually have a question about. I want to find it. One thing first off, actually, Raheem brought up a great point. He
yeah,
mentioned that he said the Level X promos are really hard to find in decent condition because the way in
yeah,
which they were packaged. And so if you look at like the Charizard, the promo Charizard is worth a lot more than the actual one that you would pull from the Supreme Victor set because of that. So I think that's kind of interesting when looking at it. Um,
my understanding is they were in the tins and the tins damaged them.
oh yeah, the tins were absolutely atrocious. Hold on one quick second. I want to look for a card because you were talking about trophy cards, and I kind of have an interesting question for you because I feel like you could answer this better than most people. Give me one quick second.
Yeah, I think some of those promos too had really cool arts. Some of the arts were even better than the set cards. So I think that also contributes to it. I know that TCA Gaming Rusty was looking for that Charizard promo one for a while. It was pretty hard to find.
It, it,
Those Charizard level X cards, interestingly, like had almost no premium over a lot of the other cards for a long time.
yeah, no, it's crazy. And I remember some guy, I forgot what his name was, but he was a YouTuber I was watching. He's like, I bought it for about $700. I don't know. I feel like it's a good buy right now. And I was like, $700, that's a lot. And now we're looking at it and we're like, that was a great buy, dude. But okay, so speaking of trophy cards, so I have I don't know if you can kind of see what they are. I have a ton of these cards. I have absolutely no idea what they're worth. I look online and I saw there was one listing. Someone put them for $2,500 for a PSA 10, but the last one sold back in like November for like $500. I have no clue what these are valued at. And I'm kind of curious because, so just to kind of give a backstory of how I got these. So a while ago when I was collecting and getting back into the hobby, I was specifically wanting to get all level X cards, right? And so I literally was just going through on like Craigslist, eBay, Facebook Marketplace, and like, all right, who has level X cards? And there was a guy who used to do Pokemon tournaments, and he would actually compete in Pokemon regionals, and then he had also taken a couple of trips to go to the championships. And so basically, he has a ton of these victory cups from the black and white era, and he has a couple of other Pokemon play victory medals like Battle Roads from it looks like 2009, 2010. And so basically, when I bought his collection, because he had a ton of level X's in it that I wanted to collect, it also had a bunch of these victory cards or these Victory Cup cards. And so I was kind of curious on like what your thoughts are on what the rarity is because there's not really a market for them. You can't find them anywhere.
All right, let me pull up my sheet here.
Mhm.
I can find it. So, first of all, it depends on the stamp.
So I have okay, so the majority of them I have are first place. So let me see. I have two second places, one third place, and then I have one, two, three, four, five first places. And then I have one other victory medal that's Battle Road and it has a Pikachu on it. And then I have another one that is victory medal that has a Typhlosion on it. So, and this is in the Heart Gold Soul Silver era.
So these are not cards that I go after or own. I will preface with that. But let me see if I can look them up for you on my trophy master list.
Yeah, because it's hard, and I've asked people like, what are these worth? Like, are these worth like as much as people are asking? Because I'm kind of curious because I think they're really, first off, I think they're really cool cards. And according to the guy that I bought them from, he was like, yeah, they gave it out to, depending upon which one it was, they gave out to the top 50 people that competed in the tournament, and if you got like, depending upon where you placed, depends on which one you got. So, and obviously these were the regional ones. So I feel like there's a good amount, but not like a ton. Hey, Zexify, how's it going? And then yeah, I agree with you, Raheem. I think the artworks were awesome in the Level X era. I mean, that's one of the reasons why it's one of my favorite. Like obviously, I have a huge nostalgic factor in it for me, but I still 100% feel like that it was just a beautiful era for Level X. It's interesting too because I like listen to a lot of people in like the Pokemon community, and so like listening to like SM Pratt and like Gary talk about it, how like these Level X cards are not worth like anything, and I'm like, man, I feel like you guys are just so set on the base set era. You don't understand like there's a whole different market for level
Yeah.
X's purely because of the kids that grew up in what I like to call the recession era. Because a lot of people, while their parents were struggling financially, a lot of kids were focusing on trying to, grow up in a world of Pokemon and Xbox and PlayStation and stuff like that. And that was kind of what we indulged on.
That was my theory as I was going after these because I looked at them and I was just like, they're amazing looking, and people are just hating on them because they didn't grow up with them. So and they
Mm-hmm.
don't. And really, what was going on is that they didn't think Pokemon was ever going to grow like this. Just to be completely honest,
Of course.
and because of that, they didn't think that vintage was going to get so much more expensive, which then made opportunity for the middle generations and for modern to get more expensive.
Mm-hmm.
So at the time, it wasn't that irrational of them. They just didn't know or expect that this amount of people would come back in.
Right.
If they knew, they would have been going after all of these.
Oh, 100%. And I feel like that's where I try and, I try and not be narrow-minded when it comes to a lot of modern, and I try to look at things from the same like lens as someone who's grown up in the
Yeah.
Level X era and kind of how they see things, and that's why I try and look at a lot of modern as okay, what do I think is a really good modern set? What do I think is a cool modern set to collect in? And so that's why like it's interesting too seeing with the Shining Fates and the Hidden Fates. It's one of those sets where it's kind of undeniable that it's the most popular set as it stands right now. But like now looking at the XY era, I'm kind of curious to see because I didn't really like collect XY, because it wasn't really my favorite. Like I didn't care for XY base. I didn't really care for Team Siege. I think Flashfire was a cool set, but it's one of these things where I feel like looking back on it now, I'm kind of like, all right, what do I think are these cool sets? Because it's really hard to see because right now the market is so stagnant, especially considering Evolution is part of that XY era set, and I think it's so overvalued. But obviously, here's the thing: is like I said, I try to look through everything from a lens. It's like it's overvalued in my eyes and from a population report and just an overall art perspective. But who knows? I mean, there's still a lot of people that I feel like that evolutions. I don't know. It's hard to
So
say. I don't want to throw everything out, but
with the modern stuff, the more modern stuff, is that everyone is keeping it in such good condition
thousand
because
percent agree.
so that's the main thing and the main issue.
Yeah,
It's going to be a supply issue.
yeah,
Whereas Little X is probably a lot more comparable to vintage in terms of people beat them up. People were playing the game.
Right.
There weren't many collectors. Pokemon wasn't that popular then as compared to now. You didn't have lines at Walmart. I can tell you that much.
God.
Tripling things up, right? So it's a complete we're in a completely different era right now. And when this happened in comic books, it destroyed the modern comic book market, and all those comics are worth nothing. When this happened in sports, to a lesser extent, not even this manic, it destroyed the modern. So
When you say destroyed modern, you mean the value of modern?
not the enjoyment and the interest, and not the brand or the company,
Right,
right?
of
And
course.
it doesn't destroy the value of the vintage stuff.
Oh, 100%. And I
So
mean,
that's important. So I'm not when I say these things, I'm not seeing dooms for Pokemon is doing amazing. People
right,
love,
right,
and there's genuine collection and enjoyment of all of this. It isn't just a favorite. People jumping over each other for money. 100%. People don't have to worry. This is no one is doomsday in this, but have that understanding that this is not uh, when this happened in these other hobbies, it 10 years became valueless. 10 years of cards of
right.
product basically became valueless or mostly valueless outside of the Michael Jordan, outside of, a few or like smaller, unique niche things within it, like potentially Japanese promo cards or English
Right.
promo, the things that are not as mass produced. Those may end up having quite a bit of value coming out of the era, that
Well,
sort of thing.
well, so it's interesting to think about, and this is kind of something I think about a lot, is I think about just overall exponential growth for the market, because it's like we say to ourselves right now, you know, that obviously with the modern population cards, like if you look at it, I think the Rainbow Rare Charizard for the or was it the Rainbow Rare Charizard? I think it was the Rainbow Rare Charizard for the sorry, give me a sec. The Rainbow Rare Charizard for the modern Champions Path, I think it's got over like 2,000 in its
Yeah.
overall, and that's absolutely insane if you look at a lot of the older cards. But one of the things I think that's kind
And
of
that's
interesting,
before that's why PSA has been completely shut down.
yeah, right, and it's crazy too because you're expecting a lot of them to still come out. So it'll be interesting to see what the overall, population report in the market is. But one of the things I kind of think about as well is if you look at, for example, what everyone likes to call the Jake Paul effect, or just kind of what's been going on in the market, and we've seen so many new people flood into it. Over time, I feel like the cards, although they won't gain as much value exponentially compared to a lot of these older sets, because purely there's such low populations right now for the older ones, like obviously the level X eras, they're in the single double digits and then triple digits for the base set and more vintage era ones.
Yeah.
uh, I still think they can retain value. It just will be a slower long-term growth, purely because if more people are truly going to go into the market, because people are going to start collecting a year over year more people. I mean, I don't think it would be out of the question, because Pokemon's known for printing to demand, that 10 years from now, we'll look back and see that the Champion's Path is like, let's just say 4,000, population PSA 10s, and you'll see that since PSA's, or not PSA, but since Pokemon's printing to demand, that the new 10 years down the line Charizards, there's like a population of 6,000 or 7,000 in population report, because the hobby has grown so much. And obviously this is all speculative, but I'm just thinking at it from like an exponential growth perspective, as the hobby will continue to grow over time. That's obviously not to say that you should invest in modern, because obviously it's, I think right now it's very risky, and I think maybe as a collector, I think from a collector's perspective, it's a good idea. But if you're looking to make returns long term, that's one thing. But I still think that in the grand scheme of things, I think it could still be worth something.
Yeah, I think the most common argument I get is like, I'll say, well, there's going to be 10,000 in the pop, and they'll say, but there are millions of Pokemon collectors, so there that isn't nearly enough to go around. And it's like, well, that may be okay,
Mhm.
but out of those millions, you need to have 10,000 people or whatever who are willing to spend thousands of dollars and continue to spend more and more on an item.
Right.
They're going to have more and more options to spend that money on in Pokemon. There's going to be
Mhm.
more and more different cards, more and more different modern options. Why
Right.
is that specific thing going to stand out? For you, it's always going to be level X. It's always going to stand out. That
Mhm.
was your childhood. That had a connection to you.
Mhm.
Like there's going to be specific things that you're always going to gravitate to, and that the majority of people at an age group are probably going to gravitate to. Predicting all of that is very difficult.
Yeah.
Predicting that kids are going to want these things and this is going to be a huge part of their childhood, or a lot of these kids, I'm not sure.
Mhm.
I that's so far down the line for me on these items. I think that it's a lot of wishful thinking.
Right.
And the main point is that vintage is still affordable.
Yeah, in the grand scheme of things, it is. I mean, obviously, PSA
Neo
10s are
PSA
a little
10 first
harder, but
edition, E Series PSA 10 Hollow first edit Hollow cards are going for in the hundreds, and people are buying vintage modern cards for like $8,000,
you said,
7,000.
I'm sorry, you cut out. You said PSA 10 first edition.
Sorry, PSA 10 first edition Neo Hollows. PSA like Gym Challenge. PSA 10 Hollows going for a few $100s.
Right.
And then people buying modern Hollow cards for $300 in PSA 10 when there's going to be so much more supply. Like it's if the vintage was way way more expensive right now, then I would be like, okay, I can see why you think the better bet or the safer bet might be modern. But I genuinely don't understand. And I think it must be because either people are stubborn and
They are. That's 100% undeniable.
and just, but it's so weird to me, if we look at other hobbies, the stuff that has the most value, the value are the first appearances, the rookie cards, the originals. And yeah, and I don't have a dog in the fight because I own a ton of modern. So
Right.
if you guys want to make all my rainbow rare cards be worth like $10,000 and my vintage cards be worth $500, I'll be happy because then I can buy a lot of the vintage ones, which
Right.
I think are even more historic and important, and
Right.
I'll still make a lot of money on the rainbow rare. So it's fine. You
And,
know what I mean? So it's
and I mean, it's one of these things where, like, I was going back to it. It's less of the argument that I think that modern will ever overlaps vintage, because I think that's near impossible to happen. It's more of the argument that it can still be an investment long term. It's just like you were saying, it's better to invest in vintage because there's still so much opportunity in the market that a lot of people are, in my opinion, I think they're not gravitating towards it because um, they either don't know about it because they're just not as knowledgeable about the market, or two, it's because um, they are more gravitated towards the modern sets because they enjoy them more. And maybe that's because they're younger and they like the art more, or maybe it's just because it's one of these things where they're just not a big fan of that kind of era. That's but before we keep going on that, someone asked a question in the chat for you. So Zexify asked, "What are your opinions on Gen 5?" So, like, obviously, Unova region kind of stuff.
sorry.
What are your opinions on Gen 5?
Which one? What's Gen 5? Just
Oh,
I'm
that's
asking.
okay. That's what I was saying. Unova region, which is like, so Gen 5 is the black and white era.
Oh, okay. Um. So the cards that I like from those sets, and the only ones that I really went into while I was buying the level X's, were like the shiny secret rare cards from those sets.
Those are beautiful, and I still think the
I,
Charizard's relatively affordable if you really look
yeah,
at it.
particularly those. Yeah, I mean the like those like plasma sets, like those cards were amazing. But speaking about I think part of the issue of those were there were a lot of like newer, less popular Pokemon, like the um Emboar,
Embor,
the
Embor,
excuse me,
the Emboar. That's so funny.
Embor, uh like the Chandelier dude.
Chandelure, yeah.
Or
I
yeah,
love
so I didn't
Chandelure.
play the game, so I know these Poke because I own those cards
Mhm.
purely for because I viewed them as like investable, and I viewed to be
Right.
completely honest, and I view them as I thought people who play those games and came up and were in love with the newer Pokemon really like them.
I
Um,
mean, I loved him personally. Like,
yeah,
my favorite of the games that I've played is Diamond Pearl. That's my
yeah,
favorite. I started my first one was Sapphire, but I loved Diamond and Pearl specifically because I like the Pokemon that are in that generation, and I
Yeah,
think it was really cool how they finished a lot of the evolution lines, and I thought they did a great job with it. And not to
yeah,
mention, from a competitive perspective, in my personal opinion, I think that hands down, the hardest champion out of any of the games playing against Cynthia, because she went from an actual competitive archetype. I don't know if you're familiar with competitive battling in Pokemon, but I know that a lot of people, including myself, love Black and White. I think it's definitely like S tier when it comes to one of the top games because it had one of the most in-depth storylines, and I think they did a phenomenal job on it with Lord N and kind of his storyline in the actual game. Because like with, in my opinion, with a lot of the modern sets, they do such a terrible like actual development of storyline, and they focus more on like holding your hand when you play the game. And like before, like it's like, all right, here's 5 pokeballs, you have no money, go earn some, versus now it's like, here's 20 pokeballs, here's $20,000, here's your leveling difference. Where before it was like in Diamond and Pearl, it's like you had to save, and if you were lucky, you could beat Cynthia on the 10th try because all of her typing was so strong. Versus it's like, all right, I'm beating the Elite Four, and I have a Rillaboom at level 100, and it's like absolutely
yeah.
just ridiculous. So I feel like that's one of the factors for a lot of people that kind of like that era.
So your passion for those games is the exact same passion, and you're gonna talk about like red and blue.
Yeah,
Like,
100%.
and I think that what's great, right? And this is for as far as investing or collecting, like you need to use your area and your knowledge to your benefit. So you are going to be much better intuitively at knowing where the value should be
Right.
in the types of sets than someone like me.
Mhm.
So I can look at the coolness of the art. I can look at the design of the Pokemon, but I don't know what people loved playing in the Game Boy games. I don't know
Right.
what Pokemon you guys talked about at recess. With another, and it's that type of thing.
Oh,
So I
we
think
were idiots at recess, my guy. You don't want to know what we talked about. Oh, we were so dumb. We thought the cards with the highest HP were the best cards, and hollows were not worth anything if they had low HP. That's what we did. We were idiots.
that stuff is important because it's what connects you. It's where the real collector connection comes from these things.
Mhm.
And someone can have all the numbers, but they're gonna miss the demand side stuff, the subjective stuff, the intangibles that make an item valuable to a large group of people or to a generation. So, for you and for your audience who's like in their 20s and knows this stuff and is like, who's this Pokemon expert that didn't know immediately, like how to say these Pokemon,
What an idiot!
yeah,
Such a
it's
boomer. No, I'm just kidding.
just, but that is your competitive advantage,
Right, right,
And,
right.
so going back to your Victory Cup question, just really quick, I
Oh
know
yeah,
that's
I
all.
was gonna ask if you found that.
So yeah, so and this was my memory of these things. So and don't quote me exactly on this, but my understanding is that there are tons of the promos of these.
Mhm.
So there's the actual ones that were given out at the tournament,
Mhm.
and then there are, which are actually very rare. There are only 40 of each. 40 first place in the world, 40 second place in the world, 40 third place in the world. But then there are promos that are numerous that aren't the actual trophy card.
Does it say it? Is it like the symbol promo at the bottom?
Maybe. Let me look, see if I can find an
Yeah,
image.
because the ones I'm looking at, so for the Victory Cup ones, they do say promo at the bottom.
Yeah. Yeah.
Versus the Pokemon Play ones, the Victory Medals, those say Battle Road Autumn and
Yeah.
Play Pokemon. They don't have the promos.
And the original trophies are Japanese.
Okay.
That's probably a quick way of telling as well. And there, so those are the ones that are very expensive and where there are only 40 in the world. And
Right.
those are the ones that I imagine, given, like, if I'm thinking about Black and White era, I'm thinking about their 40 in the world. I'm comparing it to other trophies. I'm comparing it to things like, Master Key, where they're like, roughly 36 distributed. Like the victory rings where there were like 56 for the XY era. If we want to put them like somewhere in the middle, of what the price should be of those, they're definitely not as like iconic, I think, as like the Master Key in terms of just like notoriety and popularity in the trophy card community, but
Mhm.
they would have quite a bit of value. I have no idea how much in today's market, but
Right.
certainly many thousands, a number of thousands.
But
Um,
why? Where are they then? If there's so many of them, where are they? Because if you actually look,
Promo one.
like the promos though. But if you look at the actual promo ones, you can't find them anywhere on the market.
When I
Graded.
say so many, it could be like a few thousand
Okay.
only, and a few thousand in a whole world.
And is that owned or graded? Because that's another
That
question.
might be a few thousand in the world, like few thousand were distributed. I don't know.
Oh, I
So
see. You're just talking
so
about
my
distributed.
list is everything under 1,000
Okay, I
distributed.
see.
So it's definitely more than 1,000. but but so the graphic on it has been distributed on lots and lots of cards, but I don't know the details of your exact cards. You'd have to reach out to. I'm wondering who might know. Someone like yeah, like maybe like Joe from OmniPoke. I'm not sure.
Okay. Yeah, no,
Yeah,
because I've asked a ton of people about it, and literally all of them were like, "Those are gonna be worth a lot. You should hold on to them or get them graded." And I'm like, "Well, how much is a lot?" And they're like, "A couple thousand." And I'm like, "Where are you getting these numbers?" And it's just one of
yeah,
these things where it's hard because what I tend to do to kind of like look at the value of like the overall cards is I look at the population report and then I look at the value of what they're going for on like eBay auctions or like eBay sold listings. I like listings better because you can have shill bids. Um,
yeah.
but it's one of these things where it's like there's no history. So how do
I
you do
People
that?
are falling for something there. My instinct, without knowing exactly, is like if we compare them to like the Art Academy cards, where there are actually 100 in the world with a few extra copies,
Hmm.
like those cards are like $1,000 to $2,000 still, maybe 2 to 3,000 now.
Ungraded or graded though? That's what I'm asking.
Well, graded or ungraded, they're all mint. They all came. But graded, sure, like nines, like tens. Nines and tens.
Right, right.
The raw copies are generally mint condition because they're only from 2015 and they were given out to the artists who generally kept them in very very good condition and
Mm,
pristine condition because they
right.
were already valuable immediately.
Hmm.
I would imagine these cards. So the most common one is the English print of the card with a Battle Road stamp on it. That's the most common one. If it says Battle Road.
So the one that I have that has battle roads on it, it's just this Pikachu one. That's the one that has battle roads on it.
Okay.
So, but as far as it goes with the other ones of the Victory Cup ones, these all just have promos at the bottom. It just says promo on the bottom. You can
Yeah,
see.
I would be. So I'd be concerned, like the ones that have like the stamped, like the ones that are like the different like competitions that then have stamps on them, like champion stamp, top 16, top 32. Not the ones from Worlds, but like the ones. Let me see if I can remember. Like the ones from um like the Ultra Ball where it has like the top 8 stamp, the and the choice band. Like
Mhm.
those are actually rare because those
Mhm.
were given out at competition and there were only so many that were stamped. Like those are all in like, you know, the tens to hundreds of those in the world. But these
Right.
these might be like pretty mass produced promos
Right.
and we're kind of taking advantage of the fact that people don't know that.
Right. Well, then
But
if
I
if
don't
people are
know.
taking advantage of that, then wouldn't there be more on the market, you would think? Because I feel like people would start to realize it, and you'd be seeing it everywhere on like eBay or being sold, but it's like you can't find them anywhere to buy on the internet. And so that's why I'm like, I feel like the
Well,
places. First off, I agree with you. I think the prices are inflated, because people are like, well, no one else is listing it, so I'll list it for a couple $1,000s. But also at the same time, it's like, okay, so then what is the real market value? Because there's nothing to go off of because we have such a lack of data on what everything is as far as graded population reports are.
I see a bunch of them online right now, not
Really?
necessarily graded, but like I see like 10 to 15 of them being sold in like under $100
For the
also.
first place ones?
Looks like second place, but second place, first place, and all of them, they're just promos. So I don't think that actually matters.
Here, I want to look at that because I literally looked at it. Maybe I mean, things change so
And you have
quickly.
someone trying to sell a PSA 10 first place for 2,500, with
Yeah.
17 launchers. But
Yeah.
I think
So,
it's the promo one. I don't think this is actually.
So I'm looking right now, and I see 2,500. I see another one for 2,500. I see one that is the Victory Medal going for 1,300. Um, and those are the only ones I see on the market. I see a PSA 9, going for 400. But wow, that's kind of interesting. What did you look up? I'm curious.
Uh, I just typed in Victory Cup.
I typed in Victory Cup PSA 10. So maybe let me just.
Oh yeah, no, these are all raw. These are all ungraded
Oh, you're
versions.
talking. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I was just looking at graded. So yeah, just Victory Cup Pokemon cards. Let me see. Yeah.
Here's
So
a first place for under 100.
okay. So
Let's
I
look
see.
in
Yeah, I see one going for 195. Uh,
conditions like PSA 8, PSA
yeah.
9.
Right. Which I mean, I'm obviously talking more on the graded aspect of it. Well, that's just kind
I
of
mean,
what I'm
I
thinking.
would never buy a card if I didn't know it or understand it. Would be the first
Right.
advice I give to people. So I don't know
Right.
the
I'm
answer to how many of these there are.
right. And I just
Maybe
got
I
these,
should.
I literally just got these because I was like, yeah, I bought a bunch of level X and black and white era cards, and then these just came with the collection, and I was like, kind of curious how much these are because I was seeing them. There was only three. I literally just looked for PSA 10. There was only two listings of them, and I'm just like, that's kind of weird. There's none in existence that I can find. Yeah, I see more raw. I see what you're seeing on the raw side. I just can't find any of them on the graded side. That's kind of my look. Cuz
But if
I mean, although I'm a collector of ungraded, I tend to look at more collecting graded.
but I wouldn't think that a card is rare just because it doesn't have a lot graded. You want to look to see how many ungraded and how much they're actually selling for, to get a sense of like their rarity. If you can't get like actual numbers on it. So what I would look at is let's look it up. Let's go to Victory Cup and look it up on Bulbapedia,
Okay.
and we'll look up the different because there's going to be there's a lot of different Victory Cups.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see. Yeah, no,
Okay,
cuz that's
here's here's the Victory Cup that you have. It's a Black Star promo. I can read it. Beginning with the autumn 2011, Victory Cup was awarded to those who won first, second, or third place in the Battle Road tournaments. In Japan, it was awarded to the top three competitors. So those are the Japanese ones.
okay.
It was awarded again in the same manner to the top three competitors of the World Tournament the following year as well. Okay, so there were 2 years that it was awarded with the same arts. Now let's look at the promo ones though. Based on the number of huh.
Yeah, I'm seeing just the Battle Road ones. Which I have, well, mine do say Battle Road on it. They just say promo at the bottom. So, which that looks like, I mean, unless I'm looking at a different page than you, um, I see. Are you looking at the one that just says Victory Cup Black White Promo 29? Is that the
Yeah.
Yeah, no. Yeah, so the ones that they're showing that say Battle Roads and then it has the promo at the bottom.
So I can for sure tell you there are not 40 of each of these in the world.
Right? I mean, I'm not expecting them to be worth a ton. I'm just kind of curious what their
Oh,
value is.
I no, so I just my what they're talking about here in the article is
Uh-huh.
the Japanese ones that are they
Okay.
actually were given out in trophy cases. I've seen
Okay.
those before, and those are very valuable.
Okay.
These ones, I'm just looking for information here on how they were distributed. It doesn't say, even though it shows pictures of these, which is weird.
You saw one sold? Interesting. One of the guys in the chat said he was looking for them on eBay and he saw one sold for about 130 to 165 months ago. So, but obviously that's so long ago. Yeah, no, it's just weird because it's like one of these things I just want to know what they're worth. And it's like obviously you want to be optimistic about like what it's worth, but also at the same time I want to be realistic about it. And like you were saying, I think you did bring up a good point on grasping at the ungraded. It's just hard because for me personally, I don't really trust eBay ungraded because people will say it's in mint condition and then when you look at the picture you're like I see so much whitening on the back. You're like that's maybe a light plate if you're lucky. So it's hard to take a real grasp. That's why I just lean so much towards the population report. Do I have the 2013s Xify? I have the 2012 and the 2013s. So I have the, let me look. I have, so let's see, that's one, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 2013s, and two 2012s. So, and the 2012s I have are one second place and one first place.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, it's just because it says promo at the bottom doesn't mean, because the world's promo cards that are stamped, which are rare and given out to the actual participants, have promo at the bottom too. So
Right.
that doesn't mean
Okay.
that they're not worth something or worth quite a bit.
Yeah, when you see promo, you're like, oh, this is crap. So I,
But
yeah, and I'm not. I mean, I'm not a like collector of like trophy cards myself. I've never had real interest for that. That's kind of never been my thing. So that's kind of where I'm like, what's the code at the bottom? Hold on one second. I don't. I mean, what do you mean the code? The code says, black and white 30 if that's what you're referencing, or black and white 31 if that's kind of what you're referencing. I don't know otherwise what you mean by that. It says 2011 Pokemon.
I'm
Um,
gonna quickly look up the pop reports and see
y-
if I can get any more info.
yeah, no. So, cause I don't know. I thought this was something that was kind of like, cause I have very little knowledge when it comes to like trophy cards as far as it goes. Like obviously I know there's a value for it in the market for collectors' perspective. So
Yeah, I'm not even sure. Like, I'm not sure if these are were given out to people for awards or if these are just like
so the
I'm not.
guy so the guy
Yeah.
told me that he would when he competed in the he said that when he competed in the tournaments, when he would go to regionals, he said that depending upon where he placed, whether it was top 50 or top 25 or top 10, that was what he was given.
Oh, so you got it. Oh, so which one was given for what?
So if I'm correct, if you finished top 50, you got the if you finished if you finished top 100, you got third place. If you finished top 50, you got the second place, and if you finished top 25, you got the first place. And then I
Oh,
think if you got top 10, those were where you got the really rare ones. I mean, don't quote me on it, it's not 100%, but that's kind of what I had discussed with him because I literally was looking through his binder and I was like, man, where are these Victory Cup cards? Where'd you get these from? And he was like, I competed in tournaments and traveled all over the country and would go every single year to Pokemon regionals and then Pokemon Worlds. And he said that he got them all the time from winning competitions. So, and he said the highest rank he had ever gotten was 12. And he said he has one promo that was given out to him that there was only a limited amount, and he ended up keeping that because he said he just wanted to keep it because it was nostalgic for him, and then I could have all the other promos. So who knows? I mean, yeah, no. So that's kind of just the story that he gave me on it.
so I mean, you can do the math on that then if you can figure out how many competitions they had with the same art. So if it was just two competitions, we think, then
I mean, but they're regionals too, and I mean, how many regionals? Uh,
yeah, you'd have to do the math on it and actually
no.
know how each of those things. And I don't know the answer to that
Yeah,
offhand.
right. Um, kind
That's the
of.
math that I did for all of like because I collect like the world championship promos and the stamp cards from there. So I like sat down and got as much info as I could. I contacted people from like because the other thing that they do is that they hand out multiple cards to the same person too.
Oh, okay.
What happens at the world championships is like staff, for example, like important staff will get like five staff cards
Wow.
potentially.
Are
Like
they're
some
not
year,
doing staff cards anymore though now, aren't they? Aren't they
so those
giving?
are that's just for the that isn't for like the worlds.
Okay.
That's for like Vivid Voltage. They're not doing those like pre-release like stuff with the staffs anymore.
Right.
But they said they're not doing it at least for now. But they're I assume doing it for like the world's promo cards. Do you know what the world's promo cards are?
I'm familiar with them. I'm not an expert on them. Like I know what they are.
I can grab some.
Let's see it, man. So from 2013, how did you find that information? So I don't know if you can hear me, but one of my guys said that from November to February, he said that the black and white 31 promos. I don't know where he got this info. I'm curious, where'd you get it from, Zexify? But he said they sold for anywhere between $76 to $200 back in 2013.
So
This is probably going to be my favorite part about having you on is just getting absolutely shamed by seeing how sick your collection is. Don't take that as a bad thing. Take that as a good thing because I'm literally like the little child in me is like this is the coolest thing ever. Because obviously you show it all the time on your video, but I'm over here like, all right, let's see it. Let me see all of it. Can you just pull out everything? I just want to see all of it.
You want to see the best ones first?
Oh, of course I do.
So the best world's one I have is this famous guy.
Oh, dude. Wow, that's so sick.
Just the original tropical wind, the Japanese one. So this was we think there were 180 of these distributed out at the original tropical mega battle. Um, and we have 2005, 2006 staff card and a
Oh, those are beautiful.
32. I'm working on getting everyone. Here's the top 16 from 2006.
God, where do you even find those?
Just slowly over time. Another one. I basically just try to buy every one of these I can. Here's the 2007 quarterfinalists from that year.
Are they hard to find them in nines, or I mean tens, or are they just more affordable in nines?
Yeah, like this card, a lot of these cards are like top two,
Oh, jeez.
top
Oh
three,
my God.
top four.
Okay,
Some,
Zexify, you're saying that in
some
February 2021. Okay, I see.
So I don't know. I mean, I think for me, it's yeah. I just never really looked. I remember seeing those Victory Cup cards for a while,
Mhm.
and just not being sure about their distribution. And my friends who I get a lot of this info from, they don't have it like yeah, they don't have it on this list of like 1,000 distribution cards, but they should have it if that's true. And that's what's
Right.
weird. And these guys are more knowledgeable than me, so
Right. I mean, and one of the reasons why I ask, like, as far as value wise, is because I want to send them into PSA to get graded, but I have no clue what to value them as
yeah,
far as it goes, and I have no clue what service to use because the price range is so drastic, and so I don't want to send it in with Express. And I mean, I could send it in with Express because who knows, it'll be worth a ton later in the future because I mean, there's still promo cards that you get at events. Um, so you would think they'd be more rare than sealed, but who knows? But also at the same time, it's like I don't know. Would I much rather just want to get them just with the standard grading service? So it's like it's hard to know, and it'd be interesting to see if I did do that, what PSA would do as far as premium charges if it was worth a lot more than I realized. Because how would they value that even?
yeah. I mean, PSA is going to value it based on like first of all, they barely ever upcharge people, and they would value it based on like what is being sold at publicly on
Mhm.
these auction houses on eBay. So you can just go off of like what if there have been sold listings on it, and if there haven't been, then you set the price.
Nice.
Like they're not going to be like no, I mean, like
Mhm.
no one has any proof of what it's. At the end of the day, these things are worth whatever people are willing to pay for it. In terms of
100%.
me trying to evaluate if I would buy that or not, my thought process would be one, makes me uncomfortable that I don't have a sense of the distribution.
Yeah.
So my first thing would be to try to figure that out. Two, I'd look at the art. The art's really cool. I like the card.
Mhm.
I think it stands out. I think it's cool. Um, then the issue would be like how many exist would be like the main like the rarity of it would be what I would want to look at. So I would want to look up, if you figured out from this guy that it was at all the regionals, you want to figure out how many regionals there were. So if there was like 100 given out or 50 given out or 20 given out, depending on the one at what regional, then you have to like do the math on all of those. And then you have to say it's probably was the same art for each year. So you have to double it.
Mhm.
And you have to say, well, you have to ask people, were multiple ones given out to each person? Were there other how many age ranges were there, and were they each given out to each age range, which
Mhm.
triples them if there are three different age ranges? You see, so there's lots of questions. So when I got my info on all these worlds stamped cards, that's the type of stuff I was looking at was,
Mhm.
and then does first place get all of them, or does first place just get the first place one?
Mhm.
Because in worlds they got multiple ones. So
Right. No,
Yeah.
that makes sense. No, 100%. Zexify. Yeah, no, I agree with you as far as it goes with the black and white era. It is hard to kind of find it with the history report. Yeah, no, it's kind of interesting. Okay, so kind of to steer back onto point, because obviously we were talking about that for a while. So the last thing we were talking about kind of was we were talking about the value of like the level X era cards and that kind of stuff, and you were saying you were feeling more comfortable like with the current values of like $300-400. You said you feel comfortable with that if you kind of grew up in my age. I guess my question then would be kind of answering what I had originally asked. And so then would you say that after everything kind of, I don't know if crashing is the right word, but corrects itself, do you think then it won't really correct that heavily purely because of the population, or do you think as cards start to come into the market, because we're still waiting on some of these huge bulk waves, that it could possibly correct more? I guess my question is because as a collector who I care about it more of having it as a piece just for nostalgic purposes rather than flipping it. Um, I would prefer to still buy it cheaper just because of it. And so it's one of these things where I feel like a lot of people are just kind of like, do you buy now? Do you buy later? Because who knows? Let's say it doubles in the next year, but then when it corrects itself, it does go back down to $300-400. So I'm just kind of curious on if that's kind of what your answer was.
Um,
And obviously, you can never have like a set answer.
I think like you guys are all really smart here, so it's you guys. I mean, those are all the right things, right? And I don't have an answer that you guys don't have with that. But it's my I guess what I would do in your situation or in someone else's situation is I would say to myself, okay, well, realistically here, I'm not going to be able to predict when I need a plan. I
Right.
can't just be like, I'm just gonna like wait and see
Right.
what happens forever. It's
Right.
like eventually you have to buy if you
Right.
want to buy. So I think that I think that it's likely like once I get my order back, four,
Yeah.
4 months after that, a lot of orders will probably be back from when the hype was happening, maybe even 5 months. So we might still be 6, 7 months away from where a lot of the cards start coming back, maybe even 8, 9 months, maybe
Mhm.
even a year for like the level X's, because level X's have sort of just been moving in the last month or so,
Right.
or a little bit longer than that, maybe. But so because of that, it's like, are you just gonna wait, you know, do you want to wait a whole year and not buy any of these and just it's just like, you know what, I'm going to
Right.
wait a year. In a year I'm going to see what happens and I'm going to buy it in a year, and
Right.
that's the plan. I think that that's reasonable if you have the patience to do it.
Mhm.
I think you could also set up some like target prices for certain cards,
Mhm.
and you could say, well, I'm going to wait a year mainly,
Mhm.
but in the interim, if like cards go below these types of prices, I'm going to buy them there because like that's where I feel comfortable.
Uh-huh.
um you know, for me, I have buy prices for
Right.
me personally. Like I write down a list of like these are the items I'm looking for and these are the prices I'm like willing to pay. That makes sense to me,
Right.
factoring in what I think is going to happen.
Mhm.
You know, there's probably like 300 to 1 evolutions, hidden fates being sent in to level X's. So there's like so much more evolutions than hidden fates. So even though there are probably at some level X's being sent in, there isn't going to be like waves on waves, like tens of thousands of these
I
cards.
know. It'll be interesting to see
Yeah,
because oh my gosh, I'm just curious what the prices are going to look like for a lot of these
yeah,
sets just for the single cards cuz I think they're going to take massive hits. And I mean obviously right now, do you know who Twice Baked Jake is? You
yeah,
follow him at all? Okay, yeah. No, it's interesting because a lot of people. So, I mentioned it a little bit, but I'm in a Discord group, and so it's a TCG deals group, but they specifically talk a lot about investments and stuff, and a lot of people are like big like investors that are in the group. Um, and so through that, I've gained a lot of knowledge on kind of just what shapes the market because a lot of people talk about things that they see as good investments and they've been on the money for the most part. And one of the things I thought that was kind of interesting that he that they kind of talked about with Twice Baked Jake is he was kind of talking about he controls the market a ton. First off, a lot of people have seen the correlation between like the waifu cards is what people call them, and then you see the value of single cards, and it's interesting too because it's like one of these things where sealed has become so expensive in retrospect because there's such a shortage of sealed product, and so people are turning to cards. And through that, you're seeing just cards that have absolutely skyrocketed in value that you could, like you said, buy for such dirt cheap. I mean, even when I was buying level X's, like I was buying just raw level X's because I just wanted to collect every single one, because I didn't have a ton of money at the time. I was able to buy like I don't know. Let's see. I bought all of them on average for about $6 or $7 ungraded, and then the premium
And
ones.
that's,
I think
how
the
long was that?
how long ago was that?
Yeah.
That was back in May, I want to
Mhm.
say, of last year. And so
Yeah.
that was kind of when I really started getting back into the hobby because I had really, so like I was obviously, so I used to compete. I had actually competed in a local tournament
Mhm.
myself, and I was in the competitive scene back in 2013. That was when I was super invested. But then I kind of like slowly, as the new black and white era stuff came out, I kind of moved on to other things, and I would still like follow the hobby, like I still knew it, but I wasn't collecting as avidly before. And then my friend who had been still collecting, he had told me about the Hidden Fates was coming out, and he had talked about how big of a deal Hidden Fates was, and that's kind of when I really got back into the hobby. Um, and so it was one of these things for me where I was like, although the Hidden Fates is cool and I'd like to collect it, I wanted to get back into level X's. And so when COVID happened, I was like, all right, let's start getting into level X's. So it was my goal to buy every single level X. And so basically, yeah, I was able to get them for like dirt cheap. And now it's like you look at the values right now, and they have 6, 10 plus like times returns, like 700 to 1,000% on depending upon which the ones you bought. And so it's definitely interesting to see, because going back to what I was saying with Twice Big Jake, he was talking a lot about the single card values going up, up, and up. And a lot of people are kind of curious on what that's going to look like in the future as far as single cards for those people that can't afford the sealed product. And with the grading that's going to happen at PSA, and you're going to start to see, like you're saying, these Evo Hidden Fates, you kind of got to wonder what that's going to look like for the single cards market, specifically in the graded and ungraded.
Yeah. Yeah. Um it's gonna be uh like the
Sorry if
PWCC
that's a lot.
WCC auctions. I'm just imagining like 100 people trying to like the same evolution card or the same evolution,
You just
like
have a full page of PWCC auctions on one card.
that's the type of thing that, and I think the thing is like there are people with 100 of these cards each,
Mhm.
right? Like they have 100 to try to sell,
Mhm.
but there are like 100 people trying to sell 100 of the same card. So they're
Right.
each trying to sell one card at a time to not flood the market, but there are 100 of them trying to sell it. So
Yeah, exactly.
it's there's going to need to be a humongous demand. And the thing that I'll say is that demand absolutely 100% could be there. Nobody knows the answer to that. But if
Yeah.
that demand is there, level X is much better. Like
100%.
then you don't have to worry at all about level X.
Right.
You know, if the demand is there for evolutions, everything you own is safe and in wonderful and you know, and that's that is the message I try to share with people. It's
Right.
not that no one can predict, you know, that the market is going to crash on those sorts of things, and enough people are predicting and concerned about that that it doesn't make me think that the market is so crazy and out of whack and filled with irrational exuberance. Like around the time of Logan Paul, there were like no bearish, like there were so few bearish voices. Now that things corrected, there are a lot more people kind of talking like, okay, like when is it going to correct? Should I buy? Should I not? And I think that that in and of itself means that the market is less um, irrational than it was,
Mhm.
which is good in terms of like not seeing things crash like crazy. I
Right.
just think the things that people are underestimating is supply.
Right.
So
Yeah,
it's
no, I mean, maybe it's just me, but I'm very bearish. I am very, very, very scared. And that's purely just because, uh, like I said before, as someone who invests in other markets specifically, uh, just from what I've learned, when you start hearing people who don't even know how to pronounce Pokemon right, talking about Pokemon is a good form of investment, that scares me a ton. Because
yeah.
that's when you start to see the euphoria of the market coming in and people feel like they're missing out on an opportunity on something they don't understand and they're investing in stuff that they don't understand. That scares me a lot because that's when you know the market is at an all-time high for greed, and that's when it's the time to start selling if you're trying to sell. If you're not a collector and if you're a collector, you want to still keep long term, but for the pieces that you do want to sell, and that's kind of just where I am on it, why I'm bearish. Like I'm realistic. Like I still think that, we're going to have an amazing year for Pokemon, especially because we're still trying to figure out what the 25th anniversary set is. But as far as it goes, within the next, 2 years, especially after things start going back to normal with COVID and the stimulus checks start to run dry, I mean, I can't say how much it's going to crash, but I would at least expect it to go at least to halfway of what the all-time highs were prior to the market, unless who knows, maybe it does settle out. But I mean, if things go up this high, they tend to go down just as fast. They just might level out a little bit slower over time, but that's just kind of where I am on it.
I mean, if I had to predict, I would say that there probably is too much evolutions in the world for the amount of people who are going to want it for a lot of these cards in the
Yeah.
graded market. And so what happens when that happens is that the graded cards are probably going to be like PSA 9s will probably be about 15, 10 to $15,
Hmm.
and the PSA 10s will probably be like $25 to $30. And why that happens is because that's the cost of grading.
Right.
So it makes it like now it doesn't make sense to grade anymore. So people stop grading, which actually helps the prices stabilize around those points. And
Right.
then if they ever start going up, people start grading again, which brings the prices back down.
100% agree.
So there are going to be cards in areas in the market where there are just too many that prices will never go up on those items. So I think again, you know, that it's not a matter of time and age. It's just like they're just more waiting to be graded if the cards ever do go up, that type of thing. But nothing in this market may be that right now. Like we
Right.
may be in still an awareness phase of Pokemon where they're actually, as you said earlier, and I've said a bunch, like there might be sets that are printed 10 times more than evolutions because there are that many Pokemon fans in the world in 10 to 20 years. You
Yeah.
just don't know. Like
Mhm.
when there are multiple generations of Pokemon fans in during the next bubble, like the next bubble of Pokemon may be way bigger than this one because there may be multiple generations. No one knows the answer to that.
Right.
So what's most important is your understanding of how markets work
Right.
and understanding the limitations that we all have in terms of predicting these sorts of things and then coming up with plans built around our limitations.
Mhm.
So it's like all day I can know the fundamentals of those sorts of things, but the market is not going to respond to that in the short run.
Right.
So like people are going to do, you know, in mass are going to do, different sorts of things, the new craze, the new hype. People are going to move here, people are going to move there. I think it's best to just figure out what you enjoy, figure out what you
Right.
like, understand that these items are only worth what a person believes they're worth or is willing to pay for them.
Right.
These are not companies. They don't, there's inherent risk in collectibles that other types of assets don't have. They don't produce anything.
Right.
And so be aware of all of that. Do not lose sight of what you're buying into, of what you
Right.
have, because other people are really excited, or even more importantly, because you see yourself become a millionaire, or you see yourself like 10x your value, on
Right.
these are that you think you're some sort of genius, Um,
That's
uh,
euphoria for you. That's
yeah,
that's the
that's not
euphoria
what's going
stage.
on. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, one of my favorite charts that I always show people, because a lot of my buddies are always like talking about wanting to invest. just in general in investing.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite charts at the very top of the chart, right before the market crash, says, "We're all gonna be rich. I'm a genius. We made so much money." And right after that is the just absolute destruction where you lose everything because you're like, you know, GME is going to 1,000. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. It's the best investment of our lifetime. And like hands of like crystal hands or whatever they say. Like I forgot what the term is, but
Diamond hands. Yeah.
diamond hands, not crystal hands. Yeah, diamond hands. Never sell, never sell. So it's like, yeah, no, it's one of those things where I kind of just listen to what Warren Buffett said, which is be greedy when others are fearful and be fearful when others are greedy. Plus, I like
That is
to,
the way to make money in the world,
yeah.
in my view. And the whole diamond hands thing is really just an anxiety and a fear that you don't believe in the product. So you have to try to
Yeah.
convince, rather than convincing you with arguments about why you should buy it, just don't sell it. Because if you don't sell it and I don't sell it, we'll both make money.
So
But
stupid.
neither of us know why we're holding, other than just trying to make money. And
Right.
that is that when I get a lot of hate and a lot of anger spewed at me, which I do from certain people, if you get that ever, more often than not, it's coming from that sort of thing of you're speaking truth basically,
Yeah.
or at least your truth, and they can't handle the fact that like maybe people don't want the things that you just spent a couple $1,000s on, and
Right.
maybe there's a bit of like crazy irrational exuberance and people are buying that just to make money and they don't actually the person who bought are buying those delivery Pikachus for many many thousands of dollars.
And I don't get that though. I mean, maybe it's just me, but why hate on the person just because of an opinion? Because, like I said before, like watching your videos, like there's things that you say I 100% agree with, and I would say the majority of stuff you say I agree with. But then obviously there's things that we're gonna disagree on. But that doesn't.
What?
Whoa! Hold on one second. Hold on
People
one
can like
second.
disagree
I
about things.
I don't know about that, my guy. I think we're gonna have to end this stream right now. I don't think I can be with someone who disagrees with me on something, obviously, because this is where we are in this world. No, obviously it's so stupid, and so it's like
Yeah.
if someone has a disagreement with me, and what I like to do is I like to look into it more. Because if there is something that someone points out and they make an argument, then I'm like, maybe I'm wrong and maybe they're right, or I come out with a conclusive argument for myself that I build upon based off of a point that they made. Because I think
Yeah.
at the end of the day, like being informed is the most important thing. And and there's also ultimately no one right answer. Like obviously one person could be more right over the other, but at the end of the day, it's like it's all speculative,
Yes.
And so that's yeah,
Study and learn from your mistakes, and study and
thousand
learn from
percent.
other people's mistakes, and that's the way you'll grow. Um, do not look at your profits in the short run as evidence that you have done something correct.
100%
Okay?
agree. Yeah.
Look at why you made profits and figure out if there's rationality and reason and fundamentals behind it, or if it's luck and randomness and craziness, which is a lot of the times in the short run. And that's true for me, it's true for you, it's true for every single person.
I'm just a genius, obviously. That's why.
Yeah.
I just 100% knew that Dogecoin was gonna be the next Bitcoin, and so I just threw all my life savings in it, and it just kind of worked out because I'm so smart.
Yeah, I think it's like it's crazy. Uh, yeah, I mean the power, like, and the thing is, and the reason why like I'm so fascinated in it is the social media age has just taken all of these things that have always been true about bubbles and investing and just made it like way crazier, because now like not only are we just getting like the traditional kind of like mainstream media affecting what we think, but like everyone is affecting everyone all the time, and
it's so
putting
true.
information on them all the time.
It's
So there's an overwhelming amount of narratives trying to get you to do certain things
I know.
with money and with your time. But your mindset, that's a very successful mindset because it's a growth mindset. It's a mindset of I'm open to new ideas, to new possibilities. I have these frameworks that I think apply to the world where, but there are times when it doesn't, and Warren Buffett will be the first one to acknowledge and admit this, that um, you can make a lot of money on momentum investing and being very good at following and engaging in short-term hype and in short-term value.
Right.
But it's so difficult to time, and it's so difficult to buy and sell at the right time when you do that stuff.
Yeah.
Clearly, you can make you can make a huge amount of money doing that, and you can make a lot more money doing that quicker, and that's the draw. But you
Right.
can lose a lot more money quicker too.
So two of my favorite quotes, and they correlate, but they also don't correlate. So one of my favorite quotes that I would say personally, is, and this is specifically talking about being in like trends, is the people who are, I'd rather. So here's where the correlation is. I'd rather be a dumb bull than a smart bear in a bull market. I love that one because going into the
Of
point
course.
of where it's a lot you will make, and this is the other quote, it's you'll end up, if you do it at the end of the day, making more money just sitting there holding long term than trying to time the market.
Yeah.
That's because, like, I don't know how many times I've seen people that I've even talked to when it comes to trading where they're like, why don't you sell? Like, that's such a great opportunity to sell. And I'm like, here's the deal, man. The reason why I'm not going to sell is because, first off, I don't want to have to sit and stare at a screen all day because I still have, like, like, although I like to invest and I like being informed on what I'm investing in, like, I still like to do other things than, look at a screen, do technical analysis and stuff like that. And so for me, this is a long-term investment. This is something I see is like pulling out of in the next, 10, 20, however long that is. And then second off, the reason why is because let's say I do pull out, right? And let's say that the price goes down and I'm right. Well, let's say I do that 10 more times and I'm right only 3 times. Then I missed out on opportunity by buying it at a higher price. And that's something I don't want to have to invest my time in playing hot potato with a market. I would much rather just, sit on it. And you know what? If the price does go down, then I'll just buy more because it's something that I believe in long term. You know what I mean? And it's one of these things where if it does go down, I'm not going to sit here and I'm going to just automatically sell because I'm super fearful. If I'm doing that, then it's something I don't believe in and it's something I should have never gotten in the first place, like if I were to invest in GME. So that's kind of how I look at it, especially, whether it be trading in the market or whether it be trading just Pokemon cards in general. Because it's like I have a ton of investments that I have in Pokemon that I have long term that I think will be good, but especially in like Hidden Fates. But let's say Hidden Fates just absolutely crashes, right? I will buy a ton more Hidden Fates because in my eyes, I think Hidden Fates is an amazing set. It's one of my favorite sets in the modern era, and I think long term it'll be something that could be worth a great investment in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly right, and in my opinion as well. In terms of the basic fundamental approach to investing, I think that where you have to be careful with is the humility to be aware of when you missed something initially and you've overvalued something.
Right.
And now that it's gone down, you've taken a second look and realized that you overvalued something,
Right.
for example. Or it's gone up and you realize that you missed something and
Right.
you readjust and you're willing to buy in to have to not because there's pride. There can be a ego can really hurt you there.
Yeah.
Like your ego can say, I'm not willing to admit that I made a mistake, or one way or the other, whether something goes up that you didn't own or something goes down that you do own.
Right.
And there are plenty of cases where you miss something and you should sell. After and but fundamentally, the price should not be the reason.
Right.
It's that there's some sort of tangible fundamental thing that you missed about the asset, about the company, about whatever it is. So for Hidden Fates, it might be supply. Like you may find out in a few years that just too many of those cards are graded and just too much more is printed and it keeps getting reprinted. And you might
Right.
just be like, well, just because I love the set, it's, I should not, this is always going to be readily available. This is, whatever it is. Right. Um, the reverse could be true, of course, for a lot of these things.
Right.
I think that being flexible and adaptable, but always focusing on those value assessments instead of on the return in the short run is very important.
Right.
But in the long run, you do have to look at return, and you have to be very honest with yourself and say, okay, in the last 5 years, how have I done compared to the market? In the last 10 years, how have I done compared to the market? Then you have to assess, okay, well, I've done quite a bit worse, like Warren Buffett has, like Berkshire Hathaway has, for example.
Mhm.
Why is that?
Right.
Is that because we're in a time where momentum investing and hype investing and generally I do better when we're not in a bubble and I'm gonna do better when things retrace and collapse. I'm gonna do better. I'm reserving a bunch of cash as Warren Buffett in this scenario once the bubble does finally hit, where I'm gonna actually buy like real companies that actually have profits and are not just like promising crazy things.
Right.
Don't get me started on some of these companies right now. Uh, people fall for this stuff over and over and over again. It's the same thing that happened in 2000 in the tech bubble. It was like
Right.
everyone was promising these like incredible revolutionary companies, and it was all a bunch of BS.
Right.
All of it except Amazon. I mean, it's like out of it comes like one great company. So it's patience, humility, um, being able to adapt, being able to be realistic about what you can do, and what you can achieve. What I will say is there is a time there are times to take risks, but those times need to be really, like for me, I put 50, $60,000 more into Pokemon um, once COVID hit, because and I knew that was a huge risk.
Yeah.
And because I saw the value there, and I was willing to like back up my idea of what was going to happen. And I was hearing a lot of people say negative, bearish things, and I was thinking people are going to be home, people are going to want to collect.
Right.
They're getting stimulus checks. The government looks like it's going to bail everyone out with cash. People who are going to be on unemployment are actually going to make more money.
Mhm.
And I watched the prices for a few weeks, and first they stayed stable instead of dropping, which was amazing, which is like they should be dropping, people should be panicking, but they're not. Then I went onto forums, and everyone was saying, I can't wait for the prices to go down because I'm going to buy everything. And I was like, oh, like everyone is saying that.
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
And so it's, versus everyone saying things are going to the moon, I'm going to be a millionaire. you know, so, so I think that there are times to take big risks and um, and trust yourself, but understand that like with these huge markets, you could be making big mistakes, and to give yourself a little bit of leeway to make those, and to do. I was a big poker player, and one thing I used to really try to make money off of
I
was,
love poker. You're a big poker player?
yeah, it was implied odds. So the idea that although I'm putting in this amount of money, right, into this hand, but I think I can get them all in, or I think I'm going to make a lot. If I hit my hand, which there's only a 15% chance to, I think I'm going to make, 1,000% return, basically.
Right.
Because Pokemon, poker is investing. People who are good at
100%.
poker are good at investing.
Mhm.
You're investing into the hand, you're investing into the narrative, into the story, into what other people are thinking, into the psychology of the table, into the value of your own hand. And when you see that and you can do that, controlling your emotions and being willing to lose in order to gain big is a way that you can take yourself to the next level. So you have to. It's so much. It's so much. Much to think about. So.
I mean, it's funny too because I agree with you on that. Because first off, I mean, it sounds like you were a big I don't know what that looks like, but I love poker a ton myself. And one of the things that I would do is I would like to watch a lot of the professionals, and I would just kind of learn from them. Uh, and basically one of my favorite people to watch was Daniel Negreanu, and one of the things he would talk about a lot is basically, if you do lose and you're paying into it, at least get something out of it, whether that be learning information or just understanding what your opponent is doing, because then being able to read and understand how your opponent is playing the game, because that's a huge factor on, And do I tend to know that they're bluffing if they bet higher on pre-flops or post-flops or whatever? It's small, like, kind of intricacies of that. So I think that's definitely a great point to bring up. And then going back to what you were saying too, I 100% agree with you on, like you're saying, not to be stubborn or emotional. I think a good example of that for me, where I was wrong, was so the Hidden Fates Elite Trainer Box tins, right? My local game store was selling them for $100, and I was like, that's insane. I was like, I'm just gonna wait until I can buy them somewhere else for less. That never happened. And so basically what ended up happening is I ended up buying him for 140 bucks, which, it sucks in my eyes because I could have gotten them for $40 cheaper, but in the grand scheme of things, I swallowed my pride. I bought them for $40 more, and now they're going for about 200 bucks. So it's like you can look at it from like a cost analysis of like lost opportunity, but in the end of the day, I would much rather not miss out and be like, rational about it, be like, you were wrong, just, make up for that mistake and still get in on it, because that Hidden Fates is a long-term good investment, and getting in at this price is smart, considering historically it was worth several $100 more than what it is right now. And so that's kind of like an example of like, just trying to learn from your mistakes and just swallow your pride and just don't be stubborn on missing out on an opportunity.
Yeah, it's the hardest thing to do because really, if people are being honest, and this is true for me, it's true for a lot of people are looking to have fun and enjoy themselves.
Right.
And when you're looking to have fun and enjoy themselves, it's not always the best way to make money. Because it can be really hard to swallow your pride and not feel very good.
Right.
Um, and it feels better to create these narratives about how brilliant you are, and then ignore all of the data that says you're really not that brilliant, and you can actually learn a lot, and just see the data and receive the data that you're actually brilliant and you know what you're doing. And so it's tough, and I think it's part of why it's really good to. And I made a video on this early on. Is like talk to people from different viewpoints and who are saying very different things than you. And as you put it, to really become intrigued in when people are arguing or disagree with you, and try to figure out why that is and kind of what you're missing. Yeah. So I have about 15 minutes left. I'm not sure if you had anything else that you wanted to go over today.
Okay. Yeah. No. I mean, to be honest with you, I want to just kind of milk it. I want to get everything I can out of you. And I don't know if you'd like to. We can talk about it after the stream, but I'd love to try and set up another time to meet, because I think the past 2 hours. I mean, first off, they've kind of blown by for me, and I've really enjoyed having you on. So I'd love to be able to set it up another time when you're free next.
Yeah, dude, that'd be fun. And we'll definitely have you on Pokenomics, as well.
Yeah,
for sure at some point.
Yeah, that'd be super exciting.
Yeah, no, it'd be fun. I mean, my goal is to just like it'd be a bliss of like a lot of friends who just want to like help people and share their opinions and like talking about this stuff. So anyone who I think fits that vibe and mold is who I'm, interested in.
Yeah.
Bringing to the channel.
Yeah, I mean, and honestly, like that's kind of one of the things I love about the Pokemon market specifically, is like you have those people that are obviously in it just because they're just investors and they're scalpers, and you're like, I don't consider those true fans. But then there's like people like you and like Z and G and a lot of other guys that I follow who I love listening to, because not only is it like an honest take, but I really enjoy it because you can see the passion that you guys have for the market of Pokemon, as well as the collection side, and just being so willing to help other people out. And that's something that I've really learned a lot from coming back into the market, having gone on like social pages like Discord and just talking to a lot of the people in it. Like they're always so helpful, and everyone, it's like I don't even know how to explain it. It's almost like people are fighting over trying to help you because of how nice people are. And it's one of these things, like I just feel so blessed because of like the opportunity that I've kind of had to be able to just learn from people, whether it be like watching you, or whether it be from the discussions that I've had with people who've been in the market for so long. uh it's just one of these things where it's just such a loving community, and you can really, see that from just, all the people that are a part of it, posting content and just discussing about just their love for it.
Yeah, I agree. I think the danger is that there's a lot of overconfidence.
Elaborate, elaborate.
Um, in terms of people trying to help others and giving them advice that they think is going to make them money. There's a lot of overconfidence right now, um, because everyone's made a lot of money.
Well, I guess for me personally, let me elaborate more on that myself then. When I say for me having help, I guess
Yeah.
in my aspect, what I've had the most help on is first off from a business perspective, getting the feedback from what the community wants and how I can improve as an individual when it comes to my business, or what people are seeking throughout the market, as well as just kind of the niche aspects of the market that I'm very unaware of and just learning. So I guess for me, when I say taking advice, it's less about like people are telling me you should invest in this, you should invest in that, and it's more on the knowledge that a lot of the people have in the market from their prior experience, and kind of soaking up their wisdom and their information that they've learned just overall from just being around for so long, or just knowing a lot of the intricacies. Because I mean, for example, like going into like Pokemon, for a lot of people who have never done PSA grading, or for people who have never understood the proper ways to take care of your Pokemon products, like just basic stuff, you know what I mean? Like it's one of these things where I think it's really nice to have those people to be able to like show like this is how I keep my cards, this is how I send in my graded cards, and just, having a community that's supportive in that aspect. I 100% agree with you though on being careful, because there obviously are those people that are like just invest in GME. It's a smart opportunity, and it's just,
Yeah, I mean it's like I'll just see someone on a group say something like, "What should I buy? What should I do?" And then like 25 people message that person telling them a bunch of things, and it's like, I read it and I'm just like, okay, like
that's
it's just
sketch.
like all over the place, and it's like, I don't know. I mean, it's fine. Like, and first of all, I wouldn't if someone asked me for advice on what I should buy and they just came in the hobby, I wouldn't tell them like go buy this, go buy
Right.
that. I would say, all right, you've got a lot to learn, my friend. Here are the places that I would start. I'd ask, do you want to like what do you think you're gonna like the best? First, we need to figure out like what makes you happy and like
Right.
what you want, why you're here, and what you enjoy. Do you want to join a bunch of communities? Because what's really fun is you don't even need to spend that money on cards. You just like hanging out and talking Pokemon. You don't have to have a big collection to hang out, chill, and talk Pokemon. You can save a lot of money if you realize that. That's really what you like. So, do you really like the cards? Do you want to have a big collection? Do you enjoy looking at your collection? Will you be just as happy with a small collection?
Right.
There's a lot of like conflation between enjoyment and money right now.
Right.
And a lot of people giving like investment advice to people who might be more happy if they're just trying to like put together a reasonably inexpensive collection and just have fun. So there's like it's interesting. But what I do love is that everyone's trying to help. People
Yeah.
are jumping like that, and these are well intentioned. These aren't like diamond hands like pushing people to not sell things so that they make money. Out of fear.
Right.
Although to be fair, GameStop was about a lot.
Oh
GameStop
my
was
God.
also about just like we want to destroy these hedge funds. So there's
The evil,
there's a
evil
lot
hedge
more going
funds.
on there
Yeah.
than just people trying to make money. People were trying to meme and prove a point and do something interesting and unusual and be a part of something. And I get all that. Talk
Yeah.
about fun, right?
Right.
Actually creating fun and investing.
Yeah,
So.
yeah, no. I mean, yeah, I guess for me, personally, like I said, going back to it, yeah, just being in like the Discord chat and like just joining it, because that's where I mean, if I'm being honest, that's where I'm specifically am. I spend so much time just being in within the Discord chat. For people who want to check it out, it's TCG, Pokemon TCG deals, and there's like, I think there's over like 10,000 members now. I think we just broke 10 or 20,000. I know we broke 20K on the Reddit, so it's a pretty big forum. But yeah, no, basically it's one of those things where like I really enjoy it, because I have honest discussions with people that are just into the hobby, that are really passionate about it, and it's one of these things where it's like you can tell the passion that they have, just based on just the overall honesty and the sentiment that they just share with you, and especially like the mods, for example. Like I'm
Yeah.
really close with a lot of the moderators, and and it's not even that they're giving me investment advice, it's that they're just basically telling me, like, this is where I got into the hobby, this is what I love about the hobby, kind of things, and just being able to have those discussions with Pokemon fans alike, and basically, just really being able to like immerse yourself in the community is something that I love, because I feel like that's something that you can't really say for a lot of communities. Like as someone who was a huge Call of Duty player, it's one of these things where it's like being in the Call of Duty community, it's very toxic. And so it's very toxic. And so coming over to Pokemon and seeing the community difference, it's absolutely insane, because it's not people just talking a bunch of smack. It's people that are, having fun, like you're saying, memeing it up, making jokes. Like they have some of the funniest like memes in the community. I love so much. And so stuff like that, where you just get to talk about Pokemon and just joke around with people that that love what you love.
Yeah, I mean the best thing, like the greatest thing about the internet, particularly for this year when we're all stuck, inside mostly, is just that people get to like hang out and get some human contact and talk about things that we all enjoy, that we're passionate about, and it's like it's super healthy, super helpful, fun, enjoyable. I think that what's tricky is the money.
Yep.
I think that that's the key. And my channel is very focused on talking about finance because that's the purpose of it.
Right.
When I'm talking to most of my friends about Pokemon, we're not talking about money. We're talking about fun and hanging out and talking about like our childhood with it and all sorts of things. So it's important, I think, to figure out, yeah, how to why you're here, why you're doing what you're doing. It's like have a little bit of that self-reflection.
Yeah.
And why other people are here, because there are a lot of people here who are um you know trying to solely make money, and
Right.
now those people may be really kind and nice people. And I'm not upset with them for trying to make money. So the way that I personally think about it is like, there are people who are very, I think, obvious about that, or clear about that. They're not feigning care. And why would you care about these things if you didn't grow up with that? Like they're like they're these little creatures.
Right.
We have connections because it's from our life. We have real experiences with them. So someone who doesn't like Pokemon, there's something like bad about that person or wrong.
Right.
It's not offensive.
Unless you
It's
like
like,
Yu-Gi-Oh, I mean. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
so yeah, so I look at it as like, it's hard. There are people who are struggling right now, who are out of work, who are trying to hustle, make a little extra money, doing whatever they can. There's this huge Pokemania thing going on. And I just wonder what percentage of this stuff is being fueled by money and by the mania of the investing,
It's huge.
and what percentage is really just what you were talking about, which is like going into these discords, going into these chats, and just like having fun with other people, talking, hanging out.
Yeah. I mean, I mean, if I'm being honest, I feel like a large percentage is purely money. I mean, for me personally, obviously, like I said before, there's an aspect of this where I'm like, Hidden Fates, I'm investing in it long term because I believe it
Yeah,
has potential. But then Level X era, I mean, I just want to get in as cheap as I can because I want to buy as much as I can because I love it. You know what I mean? I want to buy every single Level X card because I love Level X cards. And that's something I want to collect, I want to display. That has nothing to do when it comes to the economics of the returns. Maybe I can say like 50, 20, like 30, 40 years down the line, I get burnt with Pokemon and I'm just like, yeah, I want to just offload these cards. But to me, it's like, I look at it as something I love versus, I mean, take Walmart, for example. I don't know if I'd say it was fun. I did a social experiment where I went to my Walmart, right? And I went every day at 10 o'clock for a week. And basically, I had talked to the people preemptively. And, I don't care enough to go in and buy, everything out because first off, that's just not how I am, and I have my own business to do it. Like if there's something where I'm like, "Oh, there's some Hidden Fates." I'll buy a couple of Hidden Fates products. But I mean, first off, most of the time it's not there. But anyway, so my experiment was I was told by one of the ladies, that what happens is they sell their product, or sorry, they restock their product once a week at a random day, and they come in at 7 o'clock. So as soon as
Yeah.
they open, right? So I did an experiment, right? I said I'm gonna come at 10, and I'm gonna see what percentage is still left, right? So I remember the first day I went, it was completely empty. I'm like, all right, they haven't restocked. The second day I went, there was a couple of Champions Path products. I was like, interesting, there's Champions Path. I was like, I asked one of the ladies, I said, hey, do you know, has the person come recently to restock? And they're like, oh, they restocked this morning. There was 4 Pokemon products. Everything else was sold out. Everything was gone. And I'm like, did they do a full restock? And they're like, yeah, they did a full restock. There was just 20 people waiting at the door. And I'm just like, that's crazy. And it's funny to me too, because I don't know where you live. You said you live on Eastern Standard Time. But so I live in a small town in Oregon. And the fact of the matter that this is happening in a small town in Oregon, I can imagine what's going on in a lot of these like bigger cities on like the East Coast or like California on the West. Like it's insane to me.
There's a mania going on right now.
So,
That's built around value money.
mhm.
And I don't know. I don't know how that's going to result. I think that I'm both making lots of friends and having a lot of fun talking about this stuff and connecting. I'm also very anxious and concerned for people's financial well-being,
100%.
and I'm anxious about the scams and about a lot of people who I don't particularly like. I don't think are particularly good people who are, I think, bullying others, taking advantage of their lack of knowledge,
Yeah.
pushing them in one direction or another, and it's a humongous amount of people, so that's going to happen.
Yeah. I mean,
My goal is to get people as educated as possible so that they can feel as comfortable as possible in this market. Now, I am very uncomfortable in this market because it's crazy, right? This is not an easy time. I mean, we talked about those victory cups today. I don't know nearly enough about those to feel comfortable, and I'm probably one of the top 100 or so collectors, and in terms of size of collection, and also probably
really,
you
you
know
think top 100? I would have at least thought top 25.
I don't know. I don't
I
really
was
know.
like, I feel like you're pretty big. Maybe it's just me. Maybe it's just in my eyes.
There are a lot of secret big collections
I bet.
from people. There are a lot of a lot of the people I go to get knowledge from are not YouTubers. In fact, I don't go to any YouTubers for knowledge. I go to people who are pretty shy, but just like crazy knowledgeable and have been in it for the whole 20 years.
Right.
And I think it's part of what's cool is like they're these amazingly knowledgeable people who just they're just shy and they're not interested in the spotlight. They're not trying to be build a Pokemon business or a brand. They're not trying to make money.
A pokey influencer, or whatever they call them.
Yeah. So there's something that happens. Another issue that happens is that the size of your audience does not mean the amount of knowledge that you have
100%.
out there for people. And I think that I am somewhere in I don't feel like I know everything at all about Pokemon. I think I know a pretty good amount. I think I'm pretty high on the pop reports on the numbers, and I'm studying the market over the last 3 years. And feel pretty confident about that stuff. But I have friends who know a lot more about all the intricacies of the errors, who may even know the Victory Cup answer. There may be no one who knows that answer, which is part of the issue, or who sat down and did the math, because I literally have the trophy master list that has been made by a bunch of basically the people at the top of the hobby who've been trying to track these things down, and it's not on there. So,
Yay!
So I don't know, and that just might be because I'm foolish, and I should know this, and there are people who know it, and I'm happy to be foolish and learn something new. It doesn't feel good to be foolish, but it's a good thing to be foolish, and then because that's an opportunity to really learn something and grow.
Yeah.
To your you were talking about working on that humility and changing tax.
Yeah.
The growing process, I've only been in the hobby 3-4 years in terms of doing it really serious. I've just been very intense about it. In 5 to 10 years, you're going to have tons and tons of people like me. So it's part of it too. Is like it's there's going to be lots of people who stay really interested and engaged and have a lot of info about all sorts of things, and we're going to figure out more of this stuff over time. And eventually, we may even get some. Who knows? Some WotC employees might come out and give us some actual, distribution numbers on some of these like original sets. Which would be a humongous game changer.
That would be so nice to get that information.
Like they have in Magic the Gathering, where they have that info.
Yeah.
So yeah.
How much time you got? You got to head out.
I got another 5 minutes if there's any last minute.
I'll
I don't know if anyone's saying anything.
It's the only thing. So people are memeing. Well, so no, people are memeing in the chat. So Zexify, he's been watching the whole time. He said, "I live in DC and I've never seen what a Pokemon looks like in real life because everything is sold out there." And then one of the other guys is like, "I completely agree with that." But he also did mention, he said you also got to take competition into the picture. What cards are in cycle and stuff. I feel like a lot of people forget about that. I completely agree, especially from like if you're someone who's a short-term investor when it comes to selling competitive cards, because there's obviously cycles. I'll be interested to see how Battle Styles is from that aspect, because a couple of factors. One, you've got the scarcity of product being printed right now, and like for me personally, I haven't even gotten word on how much like my full allocation is. Like I was given a small amount and then I could order like more, and I put in like a large order, but they don't even know how much they're getting from the Pokemon card company after that. So it's hard to know, and as you've seen, the prices have just absolutely skyrocketed for sealed product. And it was funny too because people were like, "Battle Styles is gonna suck. Like, don't buy Battle Styles," and people hadn't even seen the set list yet, and they were saying that. And it's like now, for me personally at least, I think the artwork is beautiful. I think it's a really cool artwork. I mean, you're also gonna have the waifu cards in there that people are gonna also like because it's a huge market. And then yeah, going back to it, the competitive market for just the Pokemon trading card game itself. I think there's definitely going to be a huge factor in how that's going to play a role in the value of these cards.
Yeah, I mean, anything I can do to lower groupthink and help people think critically for themselves is one of my main goals. And I think one big thing is like, because someone has a big collection or because someone has more subscribers, do not listen to them. If they're not making a good argument, it doesn't make sense to you. Okay?
Right.
Listen for their arguments. So if you have a smaller collection than me and less subscribers than me, do not listen to me when I'm not making sense to you, and up and up the ladder. So it's important to listen to people and take in their arguments, but that's very important. What I will say is like I am not. When earlier on a little bit when I was building my collection, I was flipping modern a little bit here and there, but I've been completely moved away from doing that in this environment because to me it's so hype driven and crazy, and like predicting what a set is going to do when it first comes out and how much is it going to double, triple, quadruple, and where to buy it. It's not worth the time and energy for me personally. But there's plenty of money to be made there, but I'm not your man for like those intricacies right now because I just don't, I don't time it. I don't watch that closely. I think that there are a ton of people competing at that right now.
Right.
To me, this is the type of stuff I just pulled. You know what this is?
It's kind of hard to see. It looks like a Deoxys, but it's hard to see.
Yeah, the lenticular Deoxys, for example. So this is a card that, depending on how you shift it, it becomes different cards.
No way. Dude! What? Wait, where did you get that? I don't know about that card.
This is one of the best cards from the hobby that no one knows about. So
whoa!
I have a lot of cards like that.
How much do you think that's worth? Because I want to buy that.
Yeah, I mean, and I show it to give an example of there's such a lack of knowledge of vintage Japanese and all sorts of amazing cards that are literally like unbelievable.
What's that called? Sorry, I want to write that down.
Sure. It's called the lenticular. So it's from it's like the Fissures Deoxys versus series versus pack lenticular from the Japanese movie. It's from 2004.
The lenticular.
Very difficult to get in 10. It is quite an expensive card.
Probably.
But again, this card, I think I bought this card. I bought this ungraded. I bought a few of them ungraded to try and grade one. Unfortunately, this didn't come back at 10. I thought it had a chance. Came back at 9, but yeah, there's a lot of cards like that. You know, these cards are more known. You know, these like the fan club cards.
Mm-hmm.
You know, amazing cards. You know, this card not as much known.
Oh, I've seen that card before.
Yeah, most people know the English different hollow version, which is a different version of Pikachu eating the cake. So there's so many. I just grabbed like a handful of like interesting kind of Japanese cards. You know, you've got like the two most famous like McDonald's promo cards, like incredible art, like the Sunrise Mew.
God, I'm so jealous of your collection. Oh my god.
But these cards, no one is talking about them.
Yeah.
So it's like those are the cards that have history, have the beauty, have the story, have all the fundamentals. And listen, if you disagree with me and you're like, those are stupid looking cards or whatever, it's like, don't buy them, obviously.
You're dumb.
But it's there's going to be so many cards that look like the cards coming out today too. Is another thing to say. But going back to some of these old vintage hand drawn, old back Japanese, like there are things about these things that if you're a history lover of the cards, it's so much to appreciate, so much to value, and so much that will never be seen again. That's where I'd be putting my money instead of like these new things myself.
I'm sorry to cut you off. I know you only have a little bit of time, so I wanted to ask this question. So you had briefly discussed about Neo Genesis First Edition Hollows being still affordable. So, like, when you say Neo Genesis First Edition Hollows, are you talking about just the general Hollows? Because when I last looked, maybe it's just the ones I'm looking at. I was looking at the Evolutions. Those were worth a ton. So you're just saying general, just Hollows that are just in
the lesser characters.
Okay, I see.
And you might not like those characters. I like them, and I might be in the minority of people who just like I'm not so picky. But to me, it's the first ever, I think the fact that you can get like that Slow King from Neo Genesis and PSA 9 first edition for like a few $100, or for $300, whatever it's going for, maybe the most beautiful art from that set, that in the Lugia for me, incredible looking card. And I don't talk about specific cards because I don't like pushing things. I try to teach people how to like do this for themselves.
You're like talking about all these cards.
I just say, don't buy this lenticular, you fools. It's like one of the best cards and no one knows about it. And Twice Baked Jake hasn't talked about it.
Guys, Twice Baked Jake. Hey guys, if we start spamming enough in the chat, Twice Baked Jake will talk about it and we'll all be rich.
But it's I'm very confident in those things over time. First of all, the people who own them love them. They have done enough research to care enough about the hobby to stay in the hobby. You have to think about the cards that are owned. These types of cards that are owned by people are people who are going to be here forever. That are not here for a year. That are not here for 6 months. That are going to want to liquidate their collections.
Right.
A lot of the modern collections will be liquidated.
Right.
Because there's going to be a lot of people who are in here for the short term. And there's nothing wrong with that at all because they're having fun right now. But they're going to get bored of it. They're going to move on. So there's a lot of stuff to consider there. So
yeah, and I'm really glad you brought that up because I actually watched a video. This is the last thing I'll say, and we can wrap it up. I was watching a video of SM Pratt, and he was talking about some of the sets that a lot of people were missing, and I just remember one of the top comments was, "Man, I can't believe people are sleeping on Neo Gen First Edition," and I even commented it. I was like, "What do you mean exactly like Neo Gen?" And he's like, and he was talking about it briefly, but I didn't really understand what he was referencing. And so you bringing it up right now is actually really helpful because that's something even myself I wasn't looking into, and maybe that's because when I looked up Neo Gen, I was looking at those specific ones that are the super high value ones,
Yeah, and listen, all of those cards have 10x'd.
Yeah.
So it's not like those cards have not gone up a huge amount also. Everything has done that. So these are not sleepers that people don't know about. Right. You're not getting in secretively into Neo Gen. I can tell you that much. But there are really good fundamentals to those cards. I see those cards being much more resistant to retracing, much more resistant to huge increases in the population, and much more resistant to people selling off their collections because people who own those are likely going to hold them forever.
Yeah.
And I think that right now we have, and this is the point I'll end on, and I think it's a really important point, is people are underestimating, they're overestimating. They don't have a good sense of, there's a sort of inauthentic or scarcity going on right now where nothing seems scarce
Right.
because prices move so much. There's a lot of selling going on. There's still a lot of movement.
Right.
What I expect to happen eventually is there's going to be a lot more scarcity on the vintage. And when you see more scarcity, and what scarcity means is that they're not coming up to market. We're not, or for prices that,
Right. Right. Right.
So even though these items are rare, and there are only 60 in the world, 70 in the world, there's still always one or two or three on the market.
Yeah.
If that stops, and like trophy cards are being sold every month right now. But if we get to the point where trophy cards are being sold one every 3 years, and these WotC Hollow first edition PSA 10s from some of these like Neo sets in particular come on the market once a year, you're going to see a huge surges in the price because now people are going to have that, okay, if I don't buy it now, when is the next one going to come on the market? And that's what really drove up other collectibles, other markets, was that sort of scarcity, which we do not have, which is keeping prices lower.
Interesting.
If someone went out and did buyouts on those right now, it would raise the prices immediately on all of those things. It's just the truth.
Oh.
I would do it, but I have enough, and I don't even think it's nice, and I don't even want. I want to like. I think it's good that they're low, and I want people to be able to buy them and enjoy them, and I'm just like, I just don't care. Like I believe that these things will be very. If Pokemon does well, it doesn't need to. I'm not in a hurry for these things for that to happen. I don't need to force that.
Right.
Modern, on the other hand, is not going to do that. And right now, it almost feels like there is the same amount of modern as there's the same amount of vintage if you go on eBay. But in the world, that isn't true.
Oh, 100%.
And when that reality shifts, people are going to feel emotionally the difference in supply, and that is going to kick in. That's my prediction. But until that point, even if people rationally understand, it's not reality because, well, I can just go on and buy that vintage card right now. You know,
right.
It seems like I can go on and buy that modern card, but that's not likely always going to be the case. But if Pokemon continues to do well and grow, now if it doesn't, you're a modern student anyway, and vintage could also be way overhyped and go down a lot. Nothing's safe.
Right.
All right, I have to run.
Hey, thank you so much once again for coming on the stream. And so, yeah, I had a really great conversation with you. And then thanks again for everyone stopping by. So I'll let you go, though. But thanks again. Have a good one, brother.
Thank you. We'll be in touch.
All right, sounds good.